Hey guys, tonight we are going to do something a little different. We're not storming a castle or navigating treacherous court politics. Instead, we are going to lay down our swords, take a deep breath, and quietly retire. You've spent a lifetime in service, and the biggest threat you're likely to face now isn't an assassin in the night, but the quiet challenge of finding purpose when your duty is done. You're about to become a peaceful samurai in Edo, Japan, trading the battlefield for a garden. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air in the great hall is thick with the scent of aged cypress wood and the faint, clean smell of tatami mats. It's a smell you've known your entire adult life, as familiar as the weight of your two swords. The day's hoe, tucked into the sash of your formal attire. Today, however, that way feels different, less like a to love your trade and more like a heavy memory. You are kneeling and say ICA, the formal posture. Your calves and ankles already protesting with a dull ache you've learned to ignore. The silence in the hall is a living thing, broken only by the rustle of silk as retainers shift their weight and the distant chirping of a cicada outside the castle walls. Before you, seated on a raised platform, is your lord, the daimyo. His face is a mask of serene authority, but you've known him since you were both boys, and you can see the slight softness in his eyes. He is speaking, his voice not loud, but carrying effortlessly across the polished floorboards. His words are of honor, of loyalty, of decades of faithful service. He recounts a skirmish from your youth, a time when your quick thinking saved a supply drain. He mentions your meticulous work, managing the castle's rice stores for the last 15 years, a role far less glamorous than combat, but arguably more vital to the domain's stability. This was the reality for most samurai in this long, enduring piece of the Takugosha shogunate, less warrior, more administrator. You keep your gaze lowered, fixed on a single knot in the wood grain of the floor. You feel the eyes of the other samurai on your back. Some are young, their expressions a mixture of respect and a flicker of impatience, eager for their own chance to rise. Others are your contemporaries, their faces etched with a hint of envy, or perhaps pity. Retirement is an honor, a reward for a life of devotion. But it is also an ending. Historians still debate whether this moment, for a man like you, felt more like a liberation or a quiet fading into irrelevance. Was it the freedom to finally live for yourself, or the loss of the only identity you've ever known? On the stiff, wing-minus-like shoulders of your kamishimo, your family crest, the kamen, is printed in stark white, a simple design of 3 interlocking oak leaves. You see the same crest on the banners hanging from the rafters. It has been your symbol, your allegiance, your entire world. Now, that world is shrinking to the size of this room, this single ceremony. Your lord finishes speaking, and a retainer places a lacquered tray before him. On it rests the scroll, a formal declaration of your retirement, and a brocade pouch heavy with coins, your final bonus, supplementing the modest annual stipend of rice you will receive for the rest of your days. A thought, unbidened, flickers through your mind. It's a strange little detail you once read in a scroll about etiquette if a samurai's topknot, the charm mage, was not properly oiled and arranged. It was considered a sign of personal disarray, almost an insult in a formal setting. You subconsciously feel for your own. The familiar shaved patent, the carefully tied knot, a symbol of your class and discipline that you will no longer be socially obligated to maintain. Will you keep it? The question feels surprisingly profound. Your lord gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. It is time. You inhale slowly, deliberately, then exhale as you perform the final, deepest bow of your career. You press your palms flat against the tatami and lower your head. until your forehead touches the cool, woven straw. This is it, the ultimate gesture of respect and farewell. In this moment, you are not a warrior, not an administrator, not a man of any rank. You are simply a servant who has completed his service. The silence stretches, and for a few heartbeats, the only sound in the entire world is the blood humming in your ears. Then, the voice of your lord, softer now, raise your head. You have served well. Go and live your years in peace. You rise with a grace that belies your aching joints. Perform one last, less profound bow, and then you turn. Walking out of that hall is like walking through water. Every step is deliberate. You don't look back. The heavy wooden doors of the audience chamber slide shut behind you with a soft thud, and the sound echoes like the closing of a book. You are now standing in a sun-drenched corridor, blinking in the sudden brightness. You have walked out of the castle's heart and into the first day of the rest of your life. The world outside the castle gates is a sudden, overwhelming symphony of life. After the measured silence of the inner sanctum-mess, the noise of the castle town, the jokamaki, feels almost aggressive. Merchants shout their wares. The rumble of cartwheels on the packed earth road is a constant lothron, and the air, thick with the smell of charcoal fires and grilling fish, is a world away from the refined incense of the Lord's chambers. You navigate the streets with the same ingrained awareness that once helped you read a battlefield, your eyes taking in the flow of the crowd, your body moving to avoid a collision with a running child or a clumsy porter. But for the first time, you are not an official moving with purpose from one duty to the next. You are just a man, part of the throng, directionless. Your retirement stipend is modest but respectable. It's enough to live without fear of hunger, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle of an active, high-minded raking samurai. This is the first reality of your new life at downsizing. For the next few days, with the help of a discreet go- between, you begin your search for a home. The properties near the castle, in the Grand Samurai districts, are out of the question. They are too large, too expensive, and frankly, too loud with the constant comings and goings of official business. You visit a house where the walls are so close to the neighboring property, you can hear the lady of the house scolding her servant. You reject it. You visit another with a perfectly manicured garden, but it backs onto a noisy steak house. You reject that one, too. What are you looking for? The go-between. A patient man with a knack for reading his clients. Seems to understand before you do. You're not just looking for a building. You're looking for quiet. You're searching for a place where the world can be kept at a comfortable distance. A place where the only commands you have to follow are the changing of the seasons. Finally, he takes you to a place on the very edge of Edo's sprawling suburbs. To get there, you walk down a narrow lane that smells of damp earth and greenery. The sounds of the city fade behind you, replaced by the whisper of wind in a bamboo grove in the distant, rhythmic thwack of the laundry paddle on a wet kimono. And there it is. The house is not large. A simple, sturdy wooden gate, slightly weathered, opens into a small front courtyard. The house itself is a classic design, with a dark tiled roof that sags just a little in the middle, giving it the look of a comfortable old man settling into his favorite chair. But it's the garden that captures you. It's not a formal, showy garden. It's a space that feels more discovered than designed. A crooked pine tree, a true survivor, leans over a patch of deep green moss. A series of smooth, gray stones forms an uncertain path leading to a stone lantern, its top covered in lichen. There is no grand pond, but you can hear the gentle gurgle of a small stream running just behind the bamboo fence at the rear of the property. It's a garden that asks for contemplation, not admiration. Inside, the house is a series of empty, echoing rooms. The paper of the shoji screens is yellowed and torn in a few places, that they slide open to reveal the heart of the home, a wide veranda. The NAWA that looks out onto that quiet garden. The wooden planks are worn smooth by years of footsteps. You can already imagine yourself sitting here, a cup of tea in hand, watching the rain fall, The layout is simple: a main room for receiving the occasional guest, a smaller room that could serve as a study or a bedroom, a modest kitchen area. The go minus between, eager to make a sale, points out a rather specific, and to you, reassuring feature. He taps a wall and explains that the house was built with careful attention to auspicious directions, avoiding the Kimon, the demon gate in the northeast, for the location of the kitchen and privy. It's a small, superstitious detail, but it speaks of a home built with care. Standing in the main room, you feel the vast emptiness of the space around you. This is where the academic debate about samurai retirement becomes a personal, tangible feeling. Historians argue whether this period of peace truly allowed men like you to have a private life. Were you ever really off duty? Or were you expected to remain a living embodiment of the samurai ideal, disciplined, ready, and loyal even in seclusion? Was this house a sanctuary, or simply a more comfortable waiting room, in case the shogunate ever needed your sword again? The silence in the room doesn't offer an answer. You run a hand along a wooden pillar, its surface cool and solid. This is it. This is the place. There's enough work here to keep a man busy. The torn screens, the leaky spot in the roof, the go minus between conveniently forgot to mention, the garden that needs a firm but gentle hand. But more than that, there is a profound sense of peace. It's a blank canvas. Your castle life was a scroll already filled with duties, protocols, and the deeds of your ancestors. This house is an empty page. You turn to the go minus between and give a single, decisive nod. The negotiations will be handled discreetly. Your remaining funds transferred. Within a week, the house will be yours. As you stand there, the late afternoon sun slants through the empty doorway, casting a long, rectangular patch of golden light on the tatami minus mat minus imprinted floor. The light is warm, and for the first time since you bowed to your lord, you feel a flicker not of loss, but of quiet, hopeful anticipation. This is the place where you will learn to be someone new. The day you move in is a quiet affair. A single cart, hired for a few coins, carries your meager possessions. There is no procession, no entourage of servants. There is only you, a hired man to help with the heavy lifting, and a few wooden chests. One chest contains your clothes, a handful of functional, plain kimonos, a few pairs of sturdy sandals, and the formal silk attire you wore for your retirement ceremony, now carefully folded, unwrapped in rice paper. Another holds basic household goods: a few ceramic bowls, a single iron kettle, and a thick futon. The third chest, however, is different. It is longer, bound with iron, and requires both you and the hired man to carry it into the house's small, windowless storage closet. Inside this chest lies the tangible history of your former life. You unlift the heavy lid. The air that escapes smells of old leather, steel, and a faint, sharp scent of clove oil used for preservation. There, nestled in padded silk, is your do minus maru, the cuirass that wraps around the torso. Next to it are the other pieces of your armor, the plated sleeves, the greaves, the fearsome half-minus mask, the men minus yeri. Each piece is a dark, lacquered testament to a purpose you no longer hold. You run a finger over the intricate silk cords that bind the plates together. You remember the hours spent maintaining this armor, minus lacing the cords, polishing the metal, ensuring it was always ready. It was a ritual as ingrained as prayer. Beneath the armor lies your daiso. You lift the swords from their rests. The katana, the long sword, feels perfectly balanced in your hand. An extension of your arm, the hilt is wrapped in white racekin for grip. The simple iron guard, the tsuba, shaped like a lotus leaf. You don't draw the blade. You don't need to. You know its every curve. The unique pattern of the temper line. The hamon, that looks like rolling waves. You know the almost imperceptible chip near the tip, earned decades ago deflecting a bandit's spear. Then you lift the wakizarius, the shorter companion's sword. This was the blade of close quarters, the blade of last resort, and the blade of seppuku. the ritual suicide that upheld a samurai's honor. To possess these swords was the very definition of being a samurai. It was a right to burn. Even in this long peace, wearing them was a constant, visible declaration of your status and your readiness to kill and be killed in service to your lord. Now, that declaration is over. You gently place the swords back in their silk-lined slots. For a moment, you just stand there in the dim light of the storeroom, looking at these objects. They are not just metal and leather and silk. They are your youth, your training, your identity. Putting them away feels like a betrayal, a final, physical act of severance. Historians have long noted that during the Edo period, the sword became more of a symbol than a tool. For many samurai, their blades never tasted blood, but the symbolic power was immense. It was the soul of the samurai. Was locking it away akin to locking away your own soul? Or was it, perhaps, freeing it? You find a small, forgotten pouch of aromatic which shavings a common method for keeping away insects and dampness. You sprinkle the fragrant shavings over the armor. It's a strangely domestic act, like putting away winter clothes. Then you close the heavy lid. The click of the latch is loud in the small room. You slide the chest into the darkest corner of the closet, behind a stack of spare roof tiles left by the previous owner. It is done. But what about the sword you carry with you? Even in retirement, a samurai was often permitted to wear a single, shorter sword for self-defense and as a marker of status. This is a topic of some academic dispute. The exact regulations varied by domain and by the era, and how strictly they were enforced in the quiet suburbs is a matter of speculation. Some retired samurai would carry a simple blade, while others, wishing to fully embrace a life of peace, would carry a bock and a wooden sword door, even just a fan tucked into their sash as a symbolic replacement. You look down at the wakazai is still at your side. It feels heavy, conspicuous. You untie the silk cord, the seijo, that secures it to your belt. Boro bihai. You hold it for a moment, then walk to a small alcove in the main room. The two konoma. This is the traditional space for displaying art, a hanging scroll, a vase with a single flower. It is a space for beauty and contemplation. You lay the sheathed sword on the raised floor of the alcove. It's an unconventional choice. The two konoma is for art, not weapons. But to you, right now, this object is no longer a weapon. It is a relic. It is a piece of your personal history, an artifact to be observed, not wielded. It sits there, silent and still, its violent potential neutralized by its new context. You step back and look at it, the dark lacquered sheath, the glint of the gold inlay on the hilt. It doesn't look threatening. It looks sad, a tool without a job, a sentence without a verb. You feel a strange mix of relief and melancholy. The physical weight is gone from your hip, and with it, a certain tension in your posture you hadn't even realized was there. You are lighter, but you are also, in a way, undefended, not from bandits or assassins, but from the simple, terrifying question of what you are supposed to do with your hands now that they are empty. The first morning in your new home arrives, not with the sound of a drum or a shouted command, but with the gentle, insistent filtering of light through the paper shoji screens. It's a soft, gray light, carrying with it the damp, earthy smell of the garden after a night's dew. You lie on your futon on the tatami floor, listening. The house is a subtle instrument playing the music of the morning. There's the creak of a roof beam settling, the faint rustle of a breeze in the bamboo grove behind the house, and then a clear, liquid trill of a bird somewhere in the branches of the old pine tree. For a moment, you feel a pang of disorientation. Your body, conditioned by decades of habit, expects the routine of the castle, the quick, efficient dressing in the pre-dawn chill, the hurried meal of rice and pickles, the walk to your assigned post. Your muscles are tensed, ready for a day of structured duty. But here, there is no post. There is no duty. There is only the light, the silence, and the bird. You rise, Fold your futon with practiced economy and store it in a closet, reclaiming the room's open space. You slide open the wooden shutters, the amado, that protect the veranda, and the full morning floods in. The air is cool and clean. The moss in the garden seems to glow with an internal, vibrant green. You stand on the AWA, the veranda, your bare feet on the cool, smooth planks. This simple, sensory experience, the cool wood, the fresh air, the sight of the garden waking up feels like a luxury. Your first task is not dictated by a schedule, but by a basic, human need. You head to the kitchen, a small, rustic space with an earthen floor. There, you begin the ritual of making tea. It's not the formal, intricate tea ceremony, the Chan Oyu, that you hope to one day study. This is a simpler, more fundamental act. You fill the heavy iron kettle, the tetsuben, with water from a large ceramic pot and hang it on the hook over the kitchen's small, sunken hearth. The irori. You kindle a small fire with charcoal, coaxing it to life with a gentle bamboo fan. The sound of the crackling charcoal is satisfactory. While the water heats, you take out a small, rough-hewn ceramic teapot and a single cup. You measure out the green teal leaves. This is a point of quiet pride. During your last years of service, you used a portion of your stipend to purchase high-quality sencha from a merchant who got his supply directly from Ujai, a region famous for its tea. It was a small extravagance, a private pleasure. One rather interesting fact about Edo period life is that tea wasn't just a beverage. It was a social and economic marker. The quality of the tea you served a guest spoke volumes about your own taste and status. You watch the fire, listening for the sound of the water. There's a specific term for the sound the tetsuben makes just before the water boils, matsukes, or the wind in the pines. It's a soft, singing hum, a sound that tea masters say is the perfect temperature for brewing the best tea. It's a detail you learned from a book, and you find a quiet satisfaction in waiting for it, in recognizing it. The castle was a place of loud, obvious signals. This new life, you realize, will be about listening for the quiet ones. When the matsukes arrives, you pour the hot water over the leaves, watching them unfurl in the pot. You let it steep for exactly 1 minute, then pour the pale green, steaming liquid into your cup. The aroma is grassy, fresh, and clean. You carry the cup back out to the veranda and sit down, your legs dangling over the edge. You take the first sip. The warmth spreads through you, a gentle, comforting wave. The flavor is delicate, with a slight, pleasant bitterness at the end. You are not drinking for caffeine, not to jolt yourself awake for a day of work. You are drinking simply to taste the tea. This distinction feels monumental. For your entire life, every action has had a purpose, a function within a larger machine. Eating was for sustenance. Sleeping was for recovery. Training was for readiness. Now, you are performing an act for its own sake. Historians often ponder the inner life of the samurai during this era of peace. Did they find this transition to a life of quiet domesticity stifling? Or did they, like you, find a new kind of discipline in it? The debate revolves around whether the rigid code of Bushido could be adapted to a life without war. Could honor be found not in battle, but in the perfect brewing of a cup of tea? Could discipline be expressed not through the mastery of the sword, that too loved destruction, but through the patient tending of a small garden, an act of creation? You sit there for a long time, cradling the warm cup, your knuckles still bearing the calluses of a lifetime of holding a sword hilt. The sun climbs higher, and the shadows in the garden shrink. The bird has finished its song. The only sound is the gentle gurgle of the unseen stream. You take another sip of tea. The taste is the same, but something inside you has shifted. The tension in your shoulders has eased. The phantom weight of your swords is a little fainter. This is your new roll call. This is your new morning report. The tea is hot. The garden is quiet. All is well. For now, that is enough. After the tea, The silence of the house begins to feel less like peace and more like a void. The emptiness of the rooms calls out to be filled, not with possessions, but with purpose. Your eyes fall upon the small room you've designated as your study. It's bare, save for a low writing desk and a single cushion. This, you decide, is where you will start. You retrieve another of your chests. This one filled not with armor or clothes, but with the tools of a different kind of discipline, the instruments of SHOD, the way of writing. You lay out the items with a familiar reverence. A heavy, black inkstone, the Asuziri, its surface worn smooth from years of use. A solid stick of black ink, the sumi, made from pine soot and animal glue, which gives off a faint, earthy scent that you find deeply calming. A roll of soft felt, the shitojikai, to place under the paper. A paperweight, the banshin, in the shape of a sleeping cat, a small gift from your late wife many years ago. And finally, the brushes, the fudi, with their bamboo handles on tips of weasel and goat hair, each one designed for a different kind of stroke. You prepare the ink, a slow, deliberate ritual. You place a few drops of water into the well of the inkstone. Then you take the ink stick and begin to grind, moving it in a slow, circular motion. The solid ink gradually dissolves into the water, creating a liquid that is deep, lustrous, and black as a starless night. The repetitive motion is hypnotic. The friction creates a subtle warmth. The scent of the ink fills the small room. In this simple, repetitive task, your mind, so used to jumping from one concern to the next, begins to settle. You unroll a sheet of delicate rice paper. It was high. It feels impossibly fragile, a stark contrast to the heavy ink and stone. You dip the brush, loading it with just the right amount of ink. This is a skill in itself. Too much and it will blot. Too little and the stroke will be weak and lifeless. You pause, the loaded brush hovering over the paper. What will you write? Not an official report, not a name or a date. You decide to start with a single character, one you've contemplated often these past few days. Muwu, nothingness, emptiness, void. You take a breath, centering yourself. In SHOD, the character is drawn once. There is no sketching, no correcting, no going back. It's a single, fluid moment of creation, an unrepeatable performance. It's why it's sometimes called a form of action minus art. You exhale, and in one continuous motion, your wrist, your entire body moves. The brush descends, the bristles splay, the ink bleeds into the paper. A series of strokes, a horizontal line, a vertical slash, for small dots at the bottom representing fire. The character is complete. You place the brush down and look at your work. It's clumsy. The balance is wrong. The horizontal stroke is too hesitant. The final dot's too heavy, like fat tears. It looks less like nothingness and more like anxious scribbling. A flicker of the old, familiar frustration of the training yard rises in you. You are a samurai. You are supposed to be disciplined, controlled. This lack of mastery is galling. It's at this moment you recall a strange and somewhat debated piece of lore about the art form. Some old masters believe that the character a person writes is a direct reflection of their ki, their life force. At that exact moment, it was said that an expert could look at a single character and know the state of the writer's health, their mood, even their secret anxieties. Whether this is true is a matter of endless discussion among practitioners and historians. But looking at your blotchy, unbalanced mood, you can't help but feel a certain ruth in it. Your mind is not yet settled. Your spirit is not yet at peace. The paper doesn't lie. Instead of feeling defeated, however, a different feeling takes root: curiosity. You carefully set the failed attempt aside to dry. You take a fresh sheet of paper. You grind more ink. You try again, and again, and again. You spend the entire morning filling the small study with sheets of paper, each one bearing a single, imperfect character. You are not trying to create a masterpiece. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are engaged in a silent conversation with yourself. With each attempt, You focus on something different. The pressure of the brush, the speed of the stroke, the way you breathe. You stop thinking about making a good character and start thinking only about the process, the feel of the bristles on the paper, the blackness of the ink. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifts. Your movements become more fluid. Your mind, which was so cluttered with thoughts of your past life and future uncertainties, becomes quiet. There is only the ink, the paper, and the present moment. By midday, the floor is littered with your efforts. You finally draw a character that, while far from perfect, has a certain presence. The lines are not hesitant. The balance feels right. It has a quiet strength. It doesn't look like nothingness. It looks like the beginning of something. You look at your ink minus stained fingers, a sight that would have been unacceptable in the castle, and for the first time, you smile. You haven't mastered Deshodo, not by a long shot, but you have successfully filled a few hours of your new, empty life with something meaningful. The following days settle into a gentle rhythm, guided by the sun and your own inclinations rather than a roster. The morning still begins with tea on the veranda, but now your gaze on the garden is different. It's no longer just a pleasant view. It's a puzzle, a project. The crooked pine tree, which first seemed so charmingly wild, now looks neglected. Its lower branches are a tangled mess, and a few are yellowing undead. The moss is being encroached upon by opportunistic weeds. The garden, you realize, is not a static picture. It's a living entity, and it needs a partner. This leads you to your next quiet obsession, bonsai. You don't have the funds or the connections to acquire a magnificent, centuries-old specimen. Instead, you decide to start with what you have. You purchase a few basic tools from a local craftsman, a pair of sharp shears, a concave cutter for making wounds that heal cleanly, and some copper wire. Your first subject will be that very pine tree, not by shrinking it, but by applying the principles of bonsai, of finding the essential form, of careful pruning and guidance to the tree as it stands in your garden. This is, in a way, an iwaki, the art of garden tree pruning, but your mindset is that of a bonsai master. You spend a full day just observing the tree. You sit on a rock and watch how the light hits it in the morning. You walk around it, studying its shape from every angle. You try to understand its story. Which way does it want to grow? Which branch is the strongest? Which one is weak and unnecessary? This prolonged, silent observation is a form of meditation in itself. In the castle, you weren't trained to assess a situation quickly, to make snap judgments. Here, the tree teaches you the value of slowness, of deep looking. Finally, you make your first cut. Snipping off a small, dead twig feels momentous. You move slowly, methodically. You remove the branches that cross each other, creating a confusing, tangled look. You thin out the dense needles to allow light and air to penetrate the inner branches. You prune the ones that grow straight down or straight up, seeking to create a more natural, wind-swept appearance. Each cut is a decision. Each snip of the shears is a definitive action. There is no going back. As you work, a strange fact you once heard comes to mind. It's a bit of botanical lore that bonsai enthusiasts love to debate. The idea is that the wire used to shape the branches should only ever be wound in a clockwise direction. Some say it's to follow the path of the sun. Others that it aligns with the natural flow of sap and energy in the tree. Is there any scientific basis for it? Almost certainly not. And yet, when you take your first length of copper wire to gently bend a stubborn branch into a more pleasing shape, you find yourself instinctively winding it clockwise. It feels right. It's a small act of aligning yourself with tradition, with a supposed natural order. It's a detail that doesn't matter, and yet it matters completely. You spend the next week in a deep dialogue with this single tree. You learn to read its language. The droop of its needles tells you it needs water. The color of its new buds tells you it's healthy. You are not dominating it, not forcing it into an unnatural shape. You are a guide, a partner, helping it to become a more perfect version of itself. This, you realize, is a profound lesson. It's the opposite of your old life. As a samurai, you were forged, disciplined, and shaped by an external code. You were the branch being wired into place. Now, you are the one holding the wire. The physical work is satisfying. It makes your back ache and your hands dirty. You kneel in the dirt, feeling the damp earth beneath you. You get soil under your fingernails, and the smell of pine sap clings to your clothes. It's a grounding experience, connecting you to the fundamental realities of growth, life, and decay. One afternoon, your neighbor, an elderly woman who has lived on this lane for 60 years, peeks over the low bamboo fence. She watches you for a while, a silent, curious observer. Finally, she speaks, her voice raspy with age. "You are finding the tree's soul," she says, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. You simply nod, a bit embarrassed to be seen in such a state of focused obsession. Historians often discuss how samurai in the Edo period sublimated their martial energies into artistic pursuits. The discipline, focus, and pursuit of perfection required for swordsmanship were channeled into things like the tea ceremony or calligraphy. Though what about gardening? Was this, too, a sublimation? As you carefully wrap a wire around a branch, you feel a flicker of the same intense focus you once felt during a sword training kata. The precision, the understanding of balance and form, the anticipation of future growth, it's all there. You are not fighting an enemy. You are collaborating with a life force. By the end of the week, the tree is transformed. It's the same tree, yet it's entirely different. It looks lighter, more elegant. It has a sense of movement, of resilience. It is no longer just a tree. It is a statement about endurance, about finding beauty in imperfection, about the quiet dignity of survival. You step back, wiping sweat from your brow with the back of a dirty hand. You look at the tree, and then at your hands. They're stained with sap and soil. They are the hands of a gardener, and for the first time, you feel a sense of pride in them that has nothing to do with how well they could once hold a sword. The garden work leaves you with a body that is pleasantly tired and a mind that is quiet. In this new quiet, you start to notice things you were previously deaf to, not just the big sounds, like the morning bird or the wind in the bamboo, but the smaller, more fleeting moments of beauty, the way a single drop of dew clings to the edge of a spider's web, the brief, almost imperceptible scent of damp earth after you water the moss, the shadow of a dragonfly darting across the paper of your shoji screen. These moments feel significant, but they are as slippery as water. They exist for a second and are gone. You feel a new kind of urgency, the desire to capture them, to hold them. But how? You are not a painter. Your calligraphy is still a clumsy, personal dialogue. Then you remember the poets. You remember the men at court who could distill an entire season, an entire mood, into a handful of syllables. You decide to try your hand at haiku. The rules, as you understand them, seem simple enough. A 3-line poem, a pattern of 5, then 7, then 5 syllables, and, crucially, a a season word to ground the poem in a specific time of year. Simplicity, you've learned it, is often the most difficult thing to master. You sit on your veranda, your ink and brush at the ready, though this time you use a smaller, more delicate brush. You are not drawing grand characters. You are trying to spin a fine thread of words. You look out at your garden, which has become your entire world. You decide to focus on the old stone lantern, the Toro, a silent resident of your garden. It's covered in lichen and moss, a testament to its age. You want to write about it. You start, for you Toroni, on the old stone lantern. 5 syllables. Good. Now. 7. What is happening on the lantern? A small green frog, no bigger than your thumb, has taken up residence in the cool shadow of its roof. Kiruga-sand. A frog is living. 6 syllables. Not 7. You dip your brush in the ink. Cross it out. You try again. For you, Torah, no. Have the old stone lantern. 5. Page Nikaruga. In the shadow. A frog. 7. Perfect. Now the final 5. What is the frog doing? It's just sitting there. Perfectly still. Shizukani Suwaryu. Sitting silently. 6 syllables. Again. Run. Frustration. That old, familiar enemy begins to prickle at you. This is harder than sword practice. In the dojo, the rules were clear: footwork, posture, the angle of the blade. Here, the rules are fluid, maddeningly so. You put the brush down and just watch the frog. It's unblinking. Its throat pulses almost invisibly. It is the most patient creature in the world, and you realize your mistake. You are trying to describe the scene, like an administrator writing a report. You are not trying to evoke an emotion, a feeling. Herein lies a classic debate among poetry scholars. Even today, was Matsuo Beijo, the most famous master of haiku, truly the inventor of this quiet, Zen-influenced style? Or was he simply the one who perfected and popularized a form that was already evolving from a more playful, witty verse called a Cheikai no Renga? The argument is about whether haiku was born from a desire for deep, spiritual insight or from a clever parlor game. As use it there, struggling, you feel it's a bit of both. It requires the cleverness of a game in the soul of a monk. You decide to abandon the frog for a moment and think about the season. It's early summer. The tea-gull could be the rain, the heat, the singing cicadas. You close your eyes and listen. You can hear the distant, high-pitched drone of a cicada. Semi. The word itself sounds like summer. You pick up the brush again. Your mind clearer. You're not reporting on the inventory of your garden anymore. You're trying to capture a single sensory moment. For you idea. An old pond. You don't have an old pond. You have a stream. But this is the most famous haiku of all, by Bosho. You write it down just to feel the rhythm, the flow. For you, Aikakawazi Tobi Komum is a no oto. An old pond, the frog jumps in the sound of water. 17 syllables. The image is instant, complete. You can hear the splash. You can feel the quiet that came before it, and the quiet that comes after. This is the goal. Inspired, you turn back to your own world. You look at the moss you've been carefully tending, the way the sunlight diapples through the pine needles and illuminates its deep, velvety green. You forget about counting syllables for a moment and just think about the feeling. Quiet, old, alive. You dip your brush. The words come more easily this time. Matsuno Shide. Under the pine tree. 5 syllables. Tok no Midoriga. The green of the moss. 7 syllables. Mi Oyubiao. Steals the eye. 5 syllables. You read it aloud. It's simple. It's not genius. It will never be mistaken for the work of a master. But it's yours. It captures a real moment. A real feeling. You've taken a fleeting observation and given it a small, solid form. You've pinned a butterfly to a board without harming it. One interesting and slightly quirky aspect of haiku culture in the Edo period was the rise of haiku circles and contests. People from all classes, from samurai to merchants, would gather to compose and judge poetry. It was a social activity. There were even professional haiku teachers who would travel from town to town. You wonder if there's such a circle in your neighborhood. The thought is both intriguing and terrifying. Sharing your clumsy, private verses with others, it feels more intimate, more exposing than standing for inspection before your Lord. For now, you are content to be a circle of one. You fold the small piece of paper and tuck it into a wooden box where you keep your ink sticks. It's the first of what you hope will be many. You've spent the day wrestling with 17 syllables, and in doing so, you've learned to pay closer attention to the world. You've learned that sometimes, the smallest containers hold the most meaning. Your exploration of quiet hearts inevitably leads you to the most refined and disciplined of them all, Chano Wayu, the Japanese tea ceremony. Your morning cup of sencha on the veranda is a simple pleasure, but you've become increasingly curious about the deep philosophy behind the formal preparation of powdered green tea, matcha. It's a world away from your solitary, functional brew. This is not about quenching thirst. It's about crafting a shared moment of perfect, transient harmony. Finding a teacher is a delicate matter. You can't simply knock on a door. It requires an introduction. You make a few discreet inquiries through the same go-minus between who helped you find your house. He, in turn, speaks to a rice merchant, who is a lay practitioner at a local temple, and the word eventually reaches a tea master who lives a few lanes over. The master, a stern Minos-looking man named Weda, agrees to see you, not as a student, but for an initial meeting. You arrive at his home, which is even more austere and immaculate than your own. You are led not into the main house, but along a stone path, the ROJI, which translates to dewy ground. The path is intentionally rustic and uneven, designed to make you slow down, to shed the dust and concerns of the outside world. You pass a stone water basin, the Tsukuba-ai, where you are expected to purify yourself by washing your hands and mouth. This simple act of cleansing feels profoundly symbolic. You enter the tea room. The jaws hits you through a small, low entrance called an Ichi Ariguchi. It's so low you have to crawl through it, a design that forces even the proudest samurai or wealthiest lord to bow, humbling everyone to the same level. The room is tiny, perhaps only 4.5 tatami mats in size. The walls are simple, earthy plaster. The only decoration is in the 2 konoma alcove, a single, perfect white camellia in a simple bamboo vase, and a hanging scroll with a line of calligraphy that reads Ichi-go Ichi-C. One time, one meeting, Weda minus sensei is already there, moving with an economy of motion that is mesmerizing. Every gesture is precise, unhurried, and imbued with purpose. He doesn't waste a single movement. Watching him is like watching a master swordsman perform a kata, but the intent is not to destroy, but to create a moment of peace. He prepares the tea. He purifies the tools, the tea bowl cha-an, the bamboo whisk chasen, the tea scoop choshaku with a silk cloth, FUK USA. The way he folds and unfolds the FUK USA is a small, intricate ballet of its own. It's a fascinating detail that the color of the FUK USA can vary purple for a master, red for a woman, and its handling is one of the first and most difficult things a student must learn. It's a ritual within a ritual. He scoops the bright green matcha powder into the bowl, adds hot water from the iron kettle, and then whisks it. The sound of the bamboo tines of the whisk against the ceramic bowl is a quick, dry rustle. He moves the whisk rapidly, not in a circle, but in a back minus and minus fourth motion, creating a thick, frothy emerald foam. The final bowl is presented to you with a slight bow. You take it, rotating it in your palms as you were instructed, so that you don't drink from its front. The bowl is rustic, intentionally imperfect, a style known as wabi-sabi, which finds beauty in imperfection and transience. You take a sip. The flavor is intense, deeply vegetal, earthy, and surprisingly sweet, with none of the bitterness you expected. It coats your tongue, and the warmth spreads through your chest. It feels less like a drink and more like a potent medicine for the soul. After the tea, there is a long, comfortable silence. Weda minus sensei finally speaks. "Why do you wish to learn?" he asks, his voice calm and direct. You think for a moment. You could give a polite, philosophical answer about seeking harmony or appreciating beauty, but you decide on the truth. Because my life has become very quiet, you say, and I want to learn to appreciate the silence, not just endure it. This leads to a discussion, and it touches upon a point of endless debate among tea masters and historians. Is the tea ceremony primarily a Zen Buddhist practice, a moving meditation designed to lead to enlightenment, or is it an aesthetic pursuit, a form of performance art focused on the beauty of the objects and the grace of the host. Weta minus sensei seems to believe it is both, and neither. We do not prepare tea to find Zen, he says, his gaze steady. We prepare tea, and sometimes Zen finds us. We do not do it to create beauty. We do it with our full attention, and sometimes beauty is the result. He agrees to take you on as a student. Your lessons will begin next week. You will not be whisking tea for a very long time. You will start by learning how to fold the fukusa. You will learn how to carry your feet across the tatami. You will learn how to clean the tea caddy. You will spend months, perhaps years, on the fundamentals before you are ever allowed to serve a guest. The prospect is not daunting. It's comforting. It's a clear path, a discipline with tangible steps. As you leave, crawling back out through the small door and into the sunlit garden, you feel a profound sense of realignment. The world seems a little sharper, the colors more vivid. The philosophy of ichi minus go ichi minus go ichi minus e resonates deeply within you. Every meeting, every moment, is unique and will never happen again. It was a philosophy you understood intellectually on the battlefield, where any moment could be your last. But here, in this quiet context, it's not about death. It's about life. It's about paying such close attention to the present moment that you truly live it. You walk home, the rich, green taste of the matcha still lingering on your palate, and you know you have found another piece of the puzzle of your new life. Your days soon find a new anchor, your weekly lesson with Weta minus sensei. But on the other afternoons, a different, more secular ritual begins to take shape. Your immediate neighbor to the east is a man named Tanaka, another retired samurai, though from a different, less prestigious clan. He is older than you, with a face like a dried persimmon and eyes that twinkle with a quiet, strategic light. His passion is not tea or trees, but the game of Go. He invites you over one afternoon, not with a formal visit, but by simply calling your name over the fence while you are weeding your vegetable patch. You wipe the dirt from your hands and follow him to his veranda, which is almost identical to your own. In the center of the space is a goban, a thick, wooden go board. Its surface is a grid of 19x19 lines, gleaming with a soft patina from years of use. 2 wooden balls, one containing smooth, black stones, the other white, sit beside it. Do you play? Tanaka asks, already beginning to arrange the stones for a game. It has been a long time, you reply, which is true. Go was part of a young samurai's education, taught as a way to develop strategic thinking. But your duties as an administrator left little time for such leisurely pursuits. Your memories of the game are faint, a ghost of rules and basic tactics. Good, Tanaka says with a grin. Then I might have a chance to win. You sit opposite him, the board between you. The game begins. He plays black, placing the first stone on the board with a sharp, satisfying click. The sound of the slate stone on the wooden board is one of the essential pleasures of the game. You study the board, your mind struggling to recall the principles of territory, of influence, of life and death for your groups of stones. Your first few games are disasters. Tanaka's stones flow across the board like water, surrounding your clumsy, inefficient groups, cutting them off, and capturing them with a quiet, ruthless efficiency. He doesn't gloat. He simply removes your dead stones from the board and places them in the lid of his bowl, a silent testament to your defeat. He plays with a relaxed, almost lazy grace, yet his mind is clearly several steps ahead of yours. After he beats you for the 3rd time in a row, he leans back. You think like a swordsman, he says, his observation startlingly accurate. You see a weak group, then you attack it directly. You are fighting battles. Go is not about battles. It is about influence. It is about building, not just destroying. This strikes you with the force of a revelation. You were playing Go as if it were a skirmish, focusing on small, localized fights. Tanaka was playing it as if it were a campaign, shaping the entire board, sacrificing a small group, here to gain a larger advantage there. It's a lesson in perspective. It's a curious piece of trivia that Go boards themselves are often built with a slight imperfection. They are not perfect squares. They are slightly longer than they are wide. Historians and players still debate the reason for this. Some say it's a form of perspective correction, so that from the player's seated angle, the board looks like a perfect square. Others argue it's a more philosophical choice. The subtle, built-in reminder that the world of the game, like the real world, is not as perfectly balanced as it seems. This little asymmetry, this deliberate imperfection, feels connected to the wabi-sabi of your tea bowl. Your afternoons with Tanaka become a regular fixture. You never speak much during the games. The only sounds are the click of the stones, the occasional sigh of frustration usually from you, the chirping of insects in the garden, and the slurping of the cold barley tea Tanaka's wife brings out for you both. It is a companionable silence, a communication that happens not through words, but through the placement of stones on a grid. Slowly, you begin to improve. You learn to see the whole board. You learn the value of patience, of building a strong foundation before launching an attack. You learn to recognize Mia-I, situations where 2 points are of equal value, forcing your opponent to choose one while you take the other. You learn to read the shape of the stones, to sense their strength or weakness. The game becomes a mirror. It reflects your impatience, your aggression, your moments of fuzzy thinking, but it also begins to reflect your growing capacity for patience and foresight. The academic world has long seen Go as a tool for understanding samurai strategy, a direct parallel to military thinking. But sitting here, on a peaceful afternoon with Tanaka, you wonder if that's the whole story. Is it not also a perfect pastime for a retired warrior? The game contains all the elements of conflict territory: attack, defense, life, death, but they are abstracted, contained. It is a safe vessel for the strategic mind, a way to exercise those old mental muscles without any real world consequence. It is a war with no blood, a conquest with no victims. One late afternoon, after a long and hard fought game, you find yourself in a losing position. But you have a plan. You sacrifice a large, seemingly important group of your stones, a move that makes Tanaka raise an eyebrow. It looks like a desperate, foolish act, but 2 moves later, the purpose of your sacrifice becomes clear. It has allowed you to build an unassailable wall of influence across the center of the board, securing a territory far larger than the one you gave up. Tanaka stares at the board for a long time. Then he looks up at you, and a slow, genuine smile spreads across his face. He takes a handful of his own stones and places them in his bowl's lid, a gesture of concession. You have lost the battle, that you have won the war. Ah, he says, nodding with satisfaction. Now you are thinking with ink, not with steel. You don't feel a surge of victory. You feel a quiet sense of balance, of understanding. You have learned to let go, to sacrifice, to see the larger pattern. You look across the board at your neighbor. You writhe, your silent teacher. The game is over, but the quiet conversation continues. He gives you the name of a woman, a master of the Shino school of Kodo, who sometimes holds small gatherings, or Kokoi for serious practitioners. Once again, it requires a formal introduction, a delicate dance of social protocol. You are eventually granted an invitation to attend a session, not as a participant, but as a silent observer. The gathering takes place in a small, serene room in a local temple. The atmosphere is even more hushed and reverent than in the tea room. The half-dozen participants, both men and women, are all dressed in elegant, muted kimonos. They kneel in a perfect line, their faces composed and focused. At the front of the room, the komodo, or incense master, presides over a tray of exquisite instruments: tiny silver spatulas, feathered brushes, ornate incense burners, and small, decorated plates. The small incense burner, the kora, is then passed from guest to guest. Each person receives it with a graceful, prescribed set of motions, holds it in their left palm, cups the top with their right hand to form a chimney, and leans in to listen to the fragrance 3 times. They don't take a big, crude sniff. It is a delicate, almost reverent inhalation. After listening, they wipe the spot their thumb touched and pass it to the next person. The gathering you are observing is a form of incense game. Several different types of incense are prepared and passed around in a random order. The participants must listen to each one, silently memorize its character, and then, using a special calligraphy set, write down their guess as to which incense was which. It is a test of memory, of discernment, and of an incredibly refined palate for scent. Finally, as a gesture of hospitality, the master prepares a burner for you, the guest. It is passed to you with the same solemn grace. You mimic the posture you have been observing, cupping your hand over the small ceramic vessel. You lean and inhale. The scent is unlike anything you have ever experienced. It is not like a flower or a food. It is complex, deep, and layered. There is a hint of sweetness, like honey, but also a bitter, medicinal quality, and a warm, woody base that seems to coat the inside of your nose. It is a scent that feels ancient, intelligent. It seems to bypass your conscious mind and speak directly to some older, more primal part of your brain. It evokes a feeling more than an image, a sense of profound calm, of clean, sacred space. You pass the burner back, your mind reeling slightly. You have spent your life training your eyes to see the glint of a blade in the sun, your ears to hear a footstep on gravel. You have trained your body to respond with speed and precision, but you have never, not once, considered training your nose. It was a purely functional organ, there to detect the smell of smoke, of rain, of cooking food. The idea that it could be an instrument for appreciating art, for engaging in a discipline as rigorous and profound as swordsmanship, is a revelation that leaves you feeling humbled. You leave the temple feeling as though a new door has been opened in your perception. As you walk home, you find yourself paying attention to the scents of the street in a new way. The sharp tang of pickled vegetables from a vendor's stall, the earthy smell of a horse, the faint perfume of a passing lady's sleeve. The world, which you thought you were finally beginning to understand in your quiet retirement, has just revealed another, hidden layer of its complexity. Your quiet life, it seems, is becoming richer and more detailed every day. You don't seek a formal master this time. Your plate of quiet disciplines is already quite full. Instead, you purchase a small, simple book on the Aiknobo school, one of the oldest and most traditional forms of ikebana. The book is filled with woodblock print illustrations and surprisingly strict rules. This is not just putting flowers in a vase. It is an art of lines, space, and asymmetry. Your first tools are simple: a pair of sharp shears, or his ami, and a heavy metal pin frog, the kenzan, which sits at the bottom of a shallow vase to hold the stems in place. Your first subject matter comes from your own garden. You select a single, slender branch from a willow tree that dips over your back fence, 2 vibrant iris flowers that have just bloomed near the stream, and a handful of soft, green moss. You set up your workspace on the floor of the main room. The shoji screens open to the veranda. You have your shallow, dark ceramic vase, the sui ban, filled with water. You have your plant materials. You have your book. According to the diagrams, a basic arrangement should have 3 main stems, representing heaven shin, man soi, and earth haikei. Heaven is the longest, most important stem, reaching upward. Earth is the shortest, grounded in the container. Man is the middle stem, bridging the tail. It sounds simple. It is not. You take your willow branch, which you intend to be shen, the heaven element. You try to place it in the kenzan. It flops to the side. You try to trim the base at an angle to give it more stability. You cut it to short. Now it's no longer the tallest branch. You feel a familiar flicker of irritation. You, a man who could once assemble a complex suit of armor in the dark, are being defeated by a twig. You take a deep breath, remembering the lessons from your other arts. Patience, observation. You put the ruined branch aside and select another. This time, you don't just take it in, you study its curve. You look at how it grows naturally. You gently bend it, coaxing it into a more elegant line before you even try to place it. This time, it holds. It creates a beautiful, sweeping arc that defines the entire arrangement. Next comes man, the iris flowers. You trim them to about 2-3 the height of the willow branch and place them slightly in front, leaning in the same direction. Then comes earth, the second iris, trimmed shorter still and placed low, near the base. Finally, you use the moss to cover the kenzan, hiding the mechanics of the arrangement and creating a lush, green ground. You sit back and study your creation. It is acceptable. It follows the rules, but it feels stiff, lifeless. It looks like a diagram from the book, not a living piece of art. The book talks about the importance of empty space, and how the space around the flowers is as important as the flowers themselves. Your arrangement is too crowded, too busy. You have filled the space instead of honoring it. This is where you stumble into a long-running aesthetic debate that still perplexes art historians. Is Ikebana about representing nature realistically? Or is it about creating an idealized, abstract version of nature? The Ike Nobo school, with its talk of heaven, man, and earth, seems deeply philosophical and abstract. Yet, the goal is also to make the arrangement look as if it is growing naturally. It's a paradox, a highly artificial, rule-bound process designed to create something that looks effortless and organic. You remember a peculiar, almost comical tip you read. To make stiff flower stems more pliable, you are supposed to rub them with a pinch of salt. The logic is a bit murky, something about drawing out the water, and many modern practitioners dismiss it as an old wives' tale. But out of a sense of curiosity and mild desperation, you try it on a new branch. You rub a little salt onto the stem and begin to bend it. Whether it's the salt or just the renewed, gentle pressure, the branch does seem to become more cooperative. It's another one of those small, traditional details that seems to work, even if you don't understand why. You dismantle your first attempt and start over. This time, you think less about the rules and more about the personalities of the plants. The graceful, yielding willow, the proud, upright iris. You give them more room to breathe. You create more empty space. You think of it not as a collection of 3 parts, but as a single, unified sculpture. The final result is much better. The willow branch sweeps up and out. The 2 irises provide a vibrant splash of purple. One high, one low. The moss at the base anchors the whole thing. It has balance, it has movement, and most importantly, it has space. It feels alive. You place the arrangement in the 2-kono alcove, moving your sheathed wakazayas to a more discreet spot. The flowers transform the room. They bring a fragile, transient beauty into the quiet space. Looking at it, you understand that this practice is not just about aesthetics. It is a meditation on mortality. The willow branch might last for a week. The irises will be gone in a day or 2. This beauty is fleeting, and that is what makes it so precious. It's the lesson of the cherry blossoms, writ small in a vase. Each day, you will have to change the water. You will watch the flowers open, bloom, and then inevitably fade and wilt. You will then have to dismantle the arrangement and begin again. It is a discipline of creation, observation, and letting go, a perfect reflection of the seasons and of your own life. As you immerse yourself deeper in these peaceful, introspective arts, you begin to feel a strange restlessness in your body. Your mind is being cultivated, but your muscles, honed by decades of rigorous martial training, feel dormant and sluggish. The slow, deliberate movements of the tea ceremony and the careful snipping of flower stems are not enough. You miss the feeling of coiled energy, of a body in perfect, dynamic balance with itself. This leads you back to the memory of the bow. You decide to take up Kyudo, the way of the bow. But this will be a different kind of archery from the one you learned as a young samurai. Back then, archery was a practical military skill, kyujutsu. You learned to shoot quickly from horseback, to fire in volleys, to kill an enemy at a distance. The goal was effectiveness. The goal of Kyudo, as you now understand it, is not to hit the target. The hitting of the target is merely a byproduct of achieving a state of perfect form, perfect release, and perfect spiritual alignment. You build a simple archery range at the far end of your property, against a high earthen bank that will safely absorb any stray arrows. The target, the motto, is a simple circle of paper on a tightly packed straw backing. You purchase a yumi, a Japanese longbow, a magnificent and unique weapon. It's asymmetrical, over 2 meters long, and made of laminated bamboo. Its shape is a piece of ancient and brilliant engineering. You also acquired a few arrows, a fell etched with eagle feathers, and a special glove, a yugo cha, with a hardened thumb to protect your hand from the bowstring. Dressed in a simple, loose fitting kimono to allow for freedom of movement, you step onto the shooting platform for the first time in years. It is in these initial stages that you feel the vast difference from your old training. You are not rushing to get the arrow off. You are building the shot, moment by moment. You feel your muscles engage, a pull in your back and shoulders. You feel your breath. Your mind is focused on the process, not the outcome. The next stages flow into one another. Ocheokoshe, the raising of the bow. Hitiwake, the drawing of the bow. Pulling the string back, not just with your arm, but with your whole body, until the arrow is level with your cheek. This is the hardest part. The tension in the bow is immense. Your muscles scream in protest. You want to release, to let it go. But the discipline demands you hold the full draw, koi, until the moment is right. This is the spiritual core of the practice. At full draw, you are in a state of perfect equilibrium, a union of body, mind. In bow, the goal is to achieve a state of mushin, or no mind, where the release is not a conscious decision, but a natural, spontaneous event, like a snowflake falling from a bamboo leaf. You hold the draw. Your arm trembles. Your mind is a riot of noise. Hold it. Is my elbow right? Release now. No, wait. And in this chaos, you consciously let the arrow fly. It wobbles and the arrow thuds into the earthen bank. A good 2 feet to the left of the target. A complete miss. You retrieve your arrow. Your failure is a stark, invisible thing. You are not discouraged. You are intrigued. The miss was not a failure of the bow or the arrow. It was a failure of your spirit. Your mind was not empty. It was full of desire and anxiety. You spend the rest of the afternoon practicing the Hasetsu. You don't even shoot for the first hour. You just practice the form, the sequence of movements, feeling the rhythm, seeking the balance. You focus on your breathing, on the feeling of the string against your glove, on the solid connection of your feet to the earth. Finally, you try again. You move through the 8 stages. You raise the bow. You draw it back. You reach the full draw. Tai. This time, you don't fight the tension. You don't think about the target. You don't think about releasing. You just hold the moment. You breathe. The world seems to fall away. There is only the feeling of immense, stored energy, a perfect, taut balance between you and the bow. And then, it happens. The release is not a decision. Your thumb just lets go. The string snaps forward with a clean, sharp wand. The arrow is a blur. You don't even see it fly. You just hear. A moment later, a satisfying thwack. You lower the bow. Your heart calm. You look. The arrow is not in the bullseye. It's not even in the inner ring. But it is in the target. It is a clean, solid hit. A slow smile spreads across your face. You have not mastered. You have barely scratched its surface. But you have felt it. For one brief, perfect instant, you have experienced a release that came not from your hand, but from your center. You have quieted your mind enough to let your body do what it knew how to do. The ache in your shoulders feels good. It's the ache of a body being used for its intended purpose, not through violence, but for the pursuit of a moment of pure, selfless clarity. You don't sheath a live blade. The promise you made to yourself when you placed your wakazayas in the two kono ma holds firm. Instead, you use the baken, the simple, heavy wooden sword that has been a training tool for samurai for centuries. It has no edge, no point. It cannot cut. Its only purpose is to perfect form. In the early morning, when the mist still clings to the moss in your garden, you take your baken to an open space near the bamboo grove. You are not practicing combat drills or sparring with an imaginary opponent. You are practicing kata, the solo forms that are the bedrock of swordsmanship. Each kata is a prescribed sequence of movements, cuts, blocks, footwork, and postures. You begin with the most basic form, one you learn it as a boy. You stand in a ready stance, your feet firmly planted, the baken held in both hands. You clear your mind, focusing on your breath and your center of gravity, the hira. Then, you begin to move. The first movement is a simple, downward vertical cut, but as you execute it, you are not thinking of cleaving a helmet. You are thinking of the line, the flow of energy from your feet, through your hips, up your spine, down your arms, and into the tip of the wooden blade. The movement is slow, deliberate. You can feel every muscle engage. You can hear the whoosh of the baken as it displaces the air. You flow into the next movement, a parry, a step, a horizontal cut. Each movement has a name, a purpose, but you are stripping away that martial purpose and focusing only on the physical sensation, the geometry of the form. It becomes a kind of dance, a dynamic meditation. The world shrinks to the space your body occupies, to the arc of the wooden sword. This is a profoundly different experience from wielding a live blade. A real katana is surprisingly light and dangerously sharp. It encourages speed and precision, because a mistake could be fatal. The baken is heavy, solid, and forgiving. It encourages strength, flow, and a deep understanding of body mechanics. You are touching upon a subject of great debate among martial arts historians. What was the true purpose of solo kata practice during the long peace of the Edo period, with no real battles to fight? Did kata become a kind of ritualized, non-functional dance? Or did it evolve into a more profound internal art? A way of cultivating teal life energy and achieving a state of mind-body unity, similar to taikai? As you move through the forms, feeling the burn in your thighs and the stretch in your shoulders, you feel the answer is likely both. It is a dance, but it is a dance with immense power and discipline behind it. You practice for an hour, your body growing warm despite the morning chill. Sweat drips from your brow. Your breath comes in rhythmic pants. You move through a dozen different kata, each one a familiar landscape to your body. Your muscles remember the paths, even when your conscious mind falters. A curious, and slightly quirky, aspect of some sword schools is the emphasis on kirai, the shouted exclamation that accompanies a cut. It's often misunderstood as a simple war cry, but in practice, it's a tool for focusing energy, for expelling air from the lungs at the moment of maximum exertion to create a surge of power. As a young man, your kirai was loud, aggressive. Now, as you practice alone in your garden, you find yourself using a quieter, more controlled version. It's a sharp, internal exhalation, a sound like "yai" or "to." It's not for intimidating an enemy. It's for focusing your own spirit. As you finish the final movement of the last kata, holding the baken in a finishing pose, you stand perfectly still for a long moment. Your body is humming with energy. Your mind, which can often be a swamp of anxieties and memories, is completely, blissfully empty. It is the same no mind, the mushin, that you seek in archery, but achieved through dynamic, powerful motion instead of stillness. You feel a profound connection to the generations of samurai who practice these same movements in their own gardens and dojos. You are not just moving your body. You are tracing a pattern through time, participating in a tradition that stretches back centuries. You are keeping a certain spirit alive, not the spirit of the warrior, but the spirit of the disciplined practitioner. You bow to the empty garden, a gesture of respect to the art itself. You wipe down the bakken and return it to its place inside the house. The physical exertion has left you feeling calm, centered, and deeply present in your own body. Your hands, which you once thought were becoming soft, feel strong again, but it is a different kind of strength. It is not the strength to take a life, but the strength to master oneself. And in the quiet solitude of your retirement, that feels like a much greater victory. After weeks spent within the quiet confines of your home and garden, a strange curiosity begins to pull you outward. You've been meticulously cultivating your inner world, but you realize you know very little of the outer world as it exists now. Beyond your gate, you decide to take a walk, not to the temple or the archery ground, but into the heart of the city itself, into the chaotic, vibrant, and slightly disreputable world known as the Yokiao, or the floating world. Dressed in a simple, inconspicuous kimono, the kind worn by a low-ranking samurai or a prosperous merchant, you leave your quiet lane behind. As you walk toward the city center, the sounds and smells change dramatically. The gentle whisper of bamboo gives way to the clatter of wooden sandals on packed earth, the shouts of vendors, the laughter of children, and the distant, rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer. The air grows thick with the smells of street food, incense from storefront shrines, and the less pleasant scent of a crowded city in the summer heat. You wander through the bustling market streets near Nihonbashi, the Japan Bridge, which was the starting point for all major roads and the very heart of Edo. The sheer energy is overwhelming. You see stalls selling everything imaginable, colorful bolts of silk, freshly caught fish laid out on beds of ice, intricate hairpins, books of popular fiction, and cheap wood block prints depicting famous actors or beautiful courtesans. You find yourself drawn to a bookseller's stall, looking at the popular literature of the day. There are tales of adventure, ghost stories, and comical novels. It's a world away from the Confucian classics and military histories that line your own small shelf. One slightly odd but popular genre that catches your eye is a type of food guide, ranking the best noodle shops and deal restaurants in the city. The idea that commoners would spend their money on such a frivolous thing, a book about where to eat, is both baffling and fascinating to you. It speaks of a world with disposable income and a focus on pleasure that is utterly alien to your own upbringing. You continue your walk, eventually finding yourself in the district surrounding the city's main kabuki theater. The area is even more boisterous. Colorful banners flap in the wind. Hawkers sell sweet rice cakes and fans printed with the faces of the star actors. You pause to look at the large wooden posters outside the theater, painted with dramatic scenes from the current play. A samurai hero striking a heroic pose, a villain with a contorted face, a tragic princess weeping. The actors, are at the very bottom of the social hierarchy, even below merchants, and yet they are cultural superstars. Their fashions and mannerisms copied by half the city. This inversion of the strict social order is a defining feature of the floating world, and it's a source of endless debate for historians. Was the yokoyo a safety valve? A place where the rigid rules of Takugoja society could be temporarily suspended, thus preserving the overall system? Or was it a sign of the system's decay? A place where merchant culture was beginning to erode the foundations of samurai authority? Standing there, an anonymous figure in the crowd, you can feel the pull of both arguments. You have no intention of actually going into the theater. The boisterous, day-long performances are not for you. But you stand for a while, just watching the people come and go, feeling like a foreign traveler in your own city. You see flashy young men with trendy hairstyles, groups of women chattering excitedly, and even a few other samurai, looking as stiffened out of place as you feel. You decide to head home, but you take a different route, one that leads you through a quieter, more elegant district. This is Yoshiwara, the city as official, licensed pleasure quarter. It is a walled city within the city, a place of immense beauty and deep melancholy. You do not enter. You merely walk along its outer moat. Even from here, you can hear the faint, high minus pitched notes of a shinsen, the 3- stringed lute that is the signature sound of this world. You catch a glimpse of a beautiful courtesan, her face painted a stark white, her kimono, the dazzling work of art, being paraded down the main thoroughfare with her entourage. She is, like the actors, a figure of immense glamour and low social standing. She is both a commodity and an artist, trained in conversation, music, and dance. The sight is breathtakingly beautiful, and also deeply sad. The floating world is so named because it is a world of transient, fleeting pleasures, but also because it is unmoored from the respectable, everyday world. It is a beautiful dream that vanishes with the morning light. As you finally turn back towards your own quiet neighborhood, the sun is beginning to set. The noise and color of the Yokio fade behind you, and the familiar peace of your lane settles over you once more. You feel as though you have returned from a long journey. Your brief excursion has not tempted you to join that world, but it has given you a new appreciation for your own. You have chosen a life of stillness, of depth, of finding meaning in a single flower, a single cup of tea, but seeing the vibrant, chaotic, and joyful energy of the floating world reminds you that your quiet life is a deliberate choice, not an inevitability. It makes the silence in your garden feel not like an absence, but like a presence, a peaceful sanctuary you have built for yourself, set against the vibrant, floating world outside. Your foray into the floating world, with its popular novels and fleeting pleasures, has an unexpected effect. It makes you yearn for something more substantial, for the intellectual bedrock that has supported your class for centuries. You turn your attention inward again, this time to your small collection of books. Your study, once just a space for your clumsy calligraphy, now becomes a true sanctuary for reading and contemplation. The collection is not large, but it is well curated. You have the foundational texts of Neo-Confucianism, the official state ideology of the Tokugawa shogunate. You unroll a scroll of the Analects of Confucius. The familiar characters a comfort to your eyes. As a young man, you were made to memorize long passages from these texts. They were about duty, loyalty, social harmony, and the proper relationships between a lord and his vassal, a father and his son. Then, the words were a set of rules to be obeyed. Now, as you read them in the quiet of your own home, they feel different. They feel less like a rule book and more like a conversation with the wise, if somewhat stern, old man. You spend your afternoons poring over these classics, but your perspective has shifted. You are no longer reading them to learn how to be a good retainer. You are reading them to learn how to be a good man. You contemplate the concept of Ren benevolence and the ritual propriety. You realize that the rituals of the tea ceremony you are so painstakingly learning are a direct, physical expression of these abstract Confucian ideals. The respect shown to the guest, the harmony of the movements, it's all there. This leads historians into a fascinating and complex debate. How genuinely did the samurai of the Edo period believe in Confucianism? Was it a deeply held personal philosophy that guided their every action? Or was it simply a tool of social control? A convenient ideology promoted by the shogunate to ensure a docile and obedient warrior class. As you sit there, finding genuine comfort and wisdom in the ancient words, you feel that the truth, as always, is likely somewhere in between. For some of your peers, it was surely just a set of empty slogans. For you, it is becoming a source of personal guidance. Beyond the Confucian texts, you have another set of scrolls that you now approach with the new eye, the great works of military strategy. You unroll the Gorin no Sho, The Book of Five Rings by the legendary swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. When you first read it as a young, ambitious samurai, it was a manual for combat. You focused on the descriptions of sword techniques, the strategies for defeating an opponent. You saw it as a literal guide to winning duels. Now you read the passages and see something entirely different. Musashi writes, "The way of the warrior is resolute acceptance of death. In your youth, this was a call to bravery in battle. Now, you see it as a stoic philosophy for life. By accepting the inevitability of change and endings, you can live more fully and freely in the present." His advice on strategy: you must see what is far away as if it were near, and what is near as if it were far away, no longer seems like a battlefield tactic. It feels like a perfect description of your games of Go with Tanaka-san, a guide to seeing the bigger picture in all things. You even find a slightly odd but intriguing text in your collection, a copy of Hagakure, In the Shadow of the Leaves. It's a controversial book, a collection of commentaries by the samurai Yamamoto Tsuyu Itomo. It famously states, "The way of the samurai is found in death." For many, this book represents the most extreme, fanatical side of the Bushido Code. It was compiled in the early 18th century, a time of peace, and seems to express a deep nostalgia for a more violent, authentic past. Some historians view it as a dangerous and impractical philosophy, while others see it as a metaphorical guide to living with absolute devotion and sincerity in every moment. You find yourself wrestling with its ideas. Tsuyu Itomo's insistence on a readiness to die at any moment seems out of place, almost absurd, in your quiet, peaceful life, and yet you find a strange beauty in his call for absolute presence. If you are slain in battle, he writes, you should be resolved to have your corpse facing the enemy. It's a graphic, intense image, but you see the underlying principle even in your final moment. Your intent, your spirit, should be focused and true. You may no longer face an enemy on the battlefield, but you face your own mortality in the wilting of a flower, your own impatience in a failed line of calligraphy. Perhaps you muse. You can face these small, daily challenges with that same sense of focused resolve. Your days become a quiet blend of the physical and the intellectual. You will spend the morning practicing a kata with your bokken, feeling the flow of energy through your body. Then, in the afternoon, you will sit down to read Musashi, and you will see the principles of your kata reflected in his words. Or you will spend a day tending to your pine tree, and then read Confucius on the importance of order and harmony, and see your small garden as a microcosm of a well-ordered state. The books are no longer just repositories of information. They are your silent companions, your esteemed teachers. They are in dialogue with your daily life, each one illuminating the other. Your small study, with its worn-out cushion and its few precious scrolls, has become the intellectual and spiritual heart of your retirement. It's a logical next step. You already have the most important tools, the four treasures of the study: the brush, the ink, the inkstone, and the paper. But Sumi-C requires a different touch, a different way of seeing. Calligraphy is about the line. Sumi-C is about the wash, the tone, the subtle gradations of black, gray, and the white of the paper itself. You buy a few new, broader brushes made of soft goat hair, designed to hold more water, and a book of classic Sumi-C paintings to study. The subjects are timeless bamboo, orchids, plum blossoms, and rugged mountain landscapes. The style is one of radical simplicity. A few swift, confident strokes are all it takes for a master to evoke a windswept stalk of bamboo or a towering, mist-shrouded peak. There is no color. Everything is conveyed through the tone of the ink and the energy of the brushwork. Your first attempts are, predictably, a mess. You try to paint a simple stalk of bamboo, one of the traditional for gentlemen subjects that every beginner must master. You load your brush with black ink, but you use it like a calligrapher, drawing a hard, black outline. The result, looks less like a bamboo stalk and more like a prison bar. It is stiff, dead, and graceless. You consult your book. The secret, it explains, is in the loading of the brush and the control of water. You must learn to create shades of gray by diluting the ink. A master can create a whole spectrum of tones, from the palest silver to the deepest black, all in a single brushstroke. This is achieved by dipping the brush in water first, then touching just the tip to the dark ink. As the brush moves across the paper, it deposits more ink at the beginning of the stroke and more water at the end, creating a natural, beautiful gradient. You spend an entire afternoon just practicing this, making puddles of ink and water on a ceramic plate, learning to load the brush, making stroke after stroke on cheap paper, just trying to control the tone. It's a frustrating, alchemical process. Too much water and you get a formless gray blob. Too little and you get a harsh black line. It's in this frustrating process that you recall a very strange and likely apocryphal story about a famous sumi-minus-C master. It was said that he would never paint on a sunny day, believing that the dry air made the ink too aggressive and the paper too brittle. He would only paint on rainy or humid days, when the air was soft and the paper was more receptive to the ink, allowing it to bleed and blend in more beautiful, unpredictable ways. Historians dismiss this as romantic nonsense, but as you struggle in the dry afternoon air, you can't help but feel a certain poetic truth to it. The art form is a collaboration between the artist and the elements. You decide to stop trying to paint a thing and just focus on the strokes. You practice the orchid leaf stroke, a long, elegant, tapering line made with a single, graceful flick of the wrist. You practice the bamboo leaf stroke, a short, sharp, dagger-like mark. You practice the axe cut stroke used for painting craggy rocks, a technique where you lay the side of the brush down with great force. It feels like learning your sword kata all over again. Each stroke is a fundamental building block. You are not painting a picture. You are practicing your vocabulary. Slowly, your hand begins to understand. Your clumsy blobs start to look more like leaves. Your harsh lines begin to soften into the gentle curve of a stem. One rainy afternoon, inspired by the old master's tale, you decide to try the bamboo again. The air in your study is cool and damp. The sound of the rain drumming on the roof is a gentle, rhythmic percussion. You grind your ink, your movements slow and meditative. You load your brush, dipping it first in the clear water, then just touching the tip to the blackest ink. You take a breath, and then you paint, with a few swift, decisive strokes. You create the stalk, each segment formed by a single press of the brush. The tones are varied, giving it a round, dimensional feel. Then, with quicker, sharper movements, you add the branches and the leaves. You are not thinking anymore. Your hand is moving on its own, guided by 100 failed attempts. You put the brush down and look. It is not a masterpiece, but it is, unmistakably, bamboo. It has life. It has energy. The leaves seem to rustle in an invisible wind. You have not just drawn a picture of a bamboo. You have captured the idea of bamboo, its resilience, its grace, its humble strength. You pen the painting to the wall of your study. It is a small, personal victory. You have learned it to say something new. You have moved beyond the stark logic of the written character and into the more fluid, more emotional world of the image. Your journey into the arts has been a process of distillation from the complexity of your old life to the simplicity of a single line of poetry, a single flower in a vase. Now, with sumi-minus-C, you feel you are learning to express the essence of the world with nothing more than water, soot, and a single, breathtaking stroke of a brush. Your days, filled with the quiet demands of your chosen arts, are rich and full, yet they are almost entirely solitary. Aside from your lessons with Ueda-sensei and your silent games of Go with Tanaka-san, you rarely interact with anyone. You don't seek out company, but you find that company, in a quiet way, begins to seek you out. This new phase of your life begins with a simple, new habit: walking to the local temple in the late afternoon. The temple, Juryu is N-G, is not a grand, famous institution. It's a small, local-in temple, nestled in a grove of ancient cedar trees a short walk from your home. Its buildings are old and weathered, the wood faded to a soft, silver-gray. You start going there not for any specific religious purpose, but for the profound sense of peace that pervades the grounds. You love the sound of the temple bell, the ban-shu, as it is rung in the evening. It's a deep, resonant, and incredibly complex sound that seems to vibrate not just in your ears, but in your chest. The sound washes over the neighborhood, a sonorous announcement that the day is ending. You learn that there's a specific technique to ringing these bells to produce that signature, long-lasting hum. It's not just a brute -force strike. The log, the shimoku, must hit a specific spot on the bell, the tsuki-a, to create the richest tone. It's another example of how even the simplest seeming acts in this world are underpinned by a deep and often invisible technique. Your walks become a routine. You wander the temple's small, raked gravel garden, the kei or sansui, its swirling patterns of white sand, punctuated by a few carefully placed rocks, are meant to represent islands in a vast sea. It is a landscape of the mind, designed for contemplation. You often just stand and look at it, letting its stillness quiet your own internal chatter. It's on one of these walks that you meet the temple's head priest. He is an elderly man with a shaved head, a kind, wrinkled face, and an air of gentle amusement, as if he is perpetually in on a quiet joke. He sees you standing by the gravel garden day after day. One evening, he approaches you. It is a difficult thing to maintain, he says, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. The lines must be perfectly straight, that a single fallen leaf can ruin the illusion. You bow respectfully. It is very beautiful, Roshi, you reply, using a term of respect for a Zen master. He waves a dismissive hand. It is just sand on rocks. The beauty is what you bring to it. This is the beginning of your friendship. Your conversations are never about deep, philosophical matters. You don't discuss the nature of enlightenment or the meaning of koans. Instead, you talk about the weather. You talk about the price of radishes in the market. He asks about your garden, and you ask about the temple's leaky roof. He has a very practical, down to earth approach to spirituality that you find deeply refreshing. One afternoon, you find him struggling to papered, worn shoji screen in the main hall. Your own recent experience with repairing your house's screens comes to mind. You offer to help. You spend the rest of the day working together in companionable silence, carefully gluing the delicate trice paper onto the wooden lattice. He is impressed with your steady hand. A samurai's discipline is useful for many things, he says with a smile, even for tasks that do not require a sword. After this, you often find small, quiet ways to help around the temple. You help sweep the fallen leaves from the stone paths. You use your pruning skills to trim an overgrown azalea bush. These are not grand acts of charity. They are small, anonymous contributions to the quiet beauty of a place that has given you so much peace. You asked for nothing in return, and he offers nothing but a quiet nod of thanks and, occasionally, a cup of bitter, bracing tea. One day, he presents you with a small, oddly shaped bamboo whisk. My old one is worn out, he says. This is for you, a gift from a merchant who passed through. My tea is too rough for such a fine instrument. It's a high quality chasen, the kind used in the tea ceremony. It's a simple, unstated acknowledgement of your own burgeoning practice, a sign that this quiet, observant man sees more than you realize. These visits to the temple become a vital part of your weekly rhythm. They are a gentle counterpoint to your solitary artistic pursuits. At home, you are focused on your own inner world, your own quest for perfection. At the temple, You are simply a part of a community, a helpful neighbor. You are not a retired samurai, not an artist, not a student. You are just a man, sweeping waves, happy to be of some small, practical use in the world. It is a different kind of peace, not one you cultivate, but one you simply step into. Your friendship with the temple priest and your work in his garden awakens a new, more humble ambition within you. You have tamed a pine tree, captured bamboo and inked, and arranged flowers in a vase. But you have yet to engage with the earth in its most fundamental, life minus giving form. You look at the sunny, unused corner of your garden behind the kitchen, and a new idea takes root. You will start a vegetable patch. This is, in some ways, a radical departure. Your other hobbies, calligraphy, tea, are all established arts of the samurai class, ways of refining the spirit. Gardening for pleasure, like your bonsai work, was acceptable. But growing your own food, that was the work of peasants. For a man of your status, even a retired one, to kneel in the dirt and cultivate radishes was unusual. It blurred the rigid class lines that defined your society. But you are no longer concerned with status. You are concerned with the quiet satisfaction of a well-spent day. You purchase a sturdy hoe and a spade. You spend a full day clearing the patch of weeds and stubborn roots, your back and shoulders aching with a new kind of soreness. The physical labor is honest and demanding. It is not the explosive energy of a kata. That is slow, steady, grinding effort. As you work, your hands, which have learned the delicate touch of a brush and the firm grip of a bokken, become calloused and caked with soil. You go to a local seed merchant, a man with dirt permanently etched into the lines of his hands. Then you ask for his advice. He looks at your clean kimono and your topknot with a barely concealed amusement. He probably thinks you are a foolish city man with a new whim. But when you start asking specific questions about drainage and sunlight, his expression changes to one of professional respect. You buy seeds for daikon radishes, for cucumbers, for a type of hardy green called komatsuna, and for some chios, a fragrant herb. Planting the seeds is an act of pure faith. You create neat furrows in the dark, till dearth, and you drop the tiny, seemingly lifeless seeds into the soil. You cover them up, pat the earth down, and water them, and then you wait. This period of waiting teaches you a new kind of patience. With your art, you can see the results of your efforts immediately. A clumsy brushstroke, a misplaced flower. But here, the work is happening underground, in the dark, on a schedule you cannot control. You can only provide the right conditions and trust in the process. It's during this time that you remember a curious piece of agricultural lore you once read in an old almanac. The book claimed that the best time to plant root vegetables, like your daikon, was during the waning of the moon. The logic, it said, was that the moon's gravitational pull affects the water in the soil, and planting at the right time encourages the plant to focus its energy downward, into the root. Is there any truth to it? Almost certainly not. And yet, you find yourself consulting the almanac you bought, checking the phase of the moon before you plant your next row. It's a way of connecting your small, humble garden to the vast, cosmic rhythms of the universe. It makes the act feel less like farming and more like a collaboration with nature itself. A week passes. Nothing. You begin to worry. Did you plant them too deep? Too shallow? Did you buy bad seeds from that merchant? Then, one morning, you go out with your watering can, and you see it a tiny, almost invisible line of pale green. Two small leaves pushing their way up through the dark soil. A surge of pure, unadulterated joy runs through you. It is a feeling as profound and satisfying as a perfectly executed brushstroke or a well-placed ghost stone. You did not create this life, but you helped it happen. From that day on, tending your small garden becomes the frame for your daily life. It is the first thing you do in the morning, and the last thing you do before dusk. You eat with meticulous care. You water with a gentle hand. You watch for pests. You become an expert in the small dramas of your vegetable patch, the battle between a ladybug and an aphid, the territorial dispute of two rival earthworms. Historians often focus on the grand economic systems of the Edo period, the rice stipends of the samurai, the burgeoning merchant economy, but they sometimes debate the importance of the small, local micro-minus economies. Did a samurai's household garden contribute meaningfully to his finances? For most, probably not. But for you, the profit is not measured in coins. It is measured in the crisp snap of a cucumber picked fresh from the vine, in the sharp, peppery taste of a radish you pulled from the earth only moments before. One afternoon, Tanaka-san, your go-partner, leans over the fence while you are admiring a row of flourishing shios plants. You will be a farmer soon, he teases. You smile and, without a word, you reach down, pluck a few of the fragrant leaves, and hand them to him over the fence. He takes them, surprised. He crushes one between his fingers and inhales the sharp, clean scent. He gives you a nod of genuine appreciation. It is a small gift, a simple sharing of your harvest. That evening, for your simple meal of rice and grilled fish, you have a side dish of your own steamed komatsuna. It tastes better than any vegetable you have ever eaten. It tastes of sun, of soil, and of your own quiet, patient effort. In this small, earthy plot of land, you have found a joy that is honest, real, and deeply nourishing, not just for the body, but for the soul. The changing seasons begin to leave their mark, not just on your garden, but on your house as well. The humid summer gives way to the crisp, dry air of autumn, and with the change comes a new set of domestic challenges. One blustery afternoon, a gust of wind rattles the shoji screen in your study, and you see a long, jagged tear appear in the old, brittle paper. Your first instinct, born of a lifetime as a samurai in a well-staffed castle, is to call for a craftsman, a screen-maker. A HYOGIA could fix this in an hour, replacing the entire panel with fresh, white paper. It would be a simple transaction, but you pause. Your retirement stipend, while sufficient, is not lavish. And more than that, a new impulse has taken root in you. An impulse born from your gardening and your other hands. Minus on pursuits a desire to be self-sufficient, to understand and maintain your own small world. You decide you will fix it yourself. This is another small but significant departure from the norms of your class. A samurai might be expected to know how to bind a wound or fletch an arrow, but home repair was typically the domain of artisans. You are, once again, stepping across this subtle class boundary, trading dignity for competence. You walk to a part of the city known for its craftsmen and find a small shop that sells paper. The shop is a wonderland of textures and shades. There are thick, sturdy papers for official documents, gossamer thin papers for poetry, and rolls of high paper specifically for shoji screens. The shopkeeper, a talkative man with ink stained fingers, is happy to explain the differences. He shows you how to tell good paper from bad, how to feel its texture, how to hold it up to the light to check for imperfections. You also buy a pot of rice glue, SOKUI, and a special flat brush for applying it. The shopkeeper gives you a piece of advice. The secret, he says, leaning in conspiratorially, is to make the glue a little thinner than you think it needs to be, and to work fast. Once the paper is wet, it will want to wrinkle. Back home, you carefully remove the damaged screen from its wooden runners. You lay it flat on the tatami mats. The task looks simple enough. Peel off the old paper, glue on the new. As with all things you've learned recently, the simplicity is deceptive. Peeling off the old paper, which has been glued on for decades, is a tedious, painstaking process. You have to dampen it and scrape it off the delicate wooden lattice, the kamiko, without scratching or breaking the thin strips of wood. It takes you the better part of an hour. Now for the hard part. You unroll the new sheet of paper. It is crisp, clean, and intimidatingly perfect. You measure it. cut it to size, and then you begin to apply the glue. The shopkeeper's advice echoes in your head as you brush the thin, watery rice minus glue onto the lattice. You work quickly, trying to get an even coat on every surface. Then, with the help of a long ruler to keep it straight, you lay the new paper over the frame. You press it down gently, trying to smooth out any bubbles or wrinkles. But the wet paper is unruly. A wrinkle appears near the corner as you try to smooth it out. Another one forms in the middle. You feel a rising tide of frustration. Your graceful, disciplined hands, which can guide a brush or a sword, feel clumsy and oafish. It's in this moment of frustration that you recall a strange, almost counter-intuitive technique you once saw a craftsman use. After he had glued the paper on, and it was still wrinkled and sagging, he took a small water sprayer and deliberately sprayed the entire surface with a fine mist of water. At the time, it seemed like madness. Why make it wetter? But the craftsman explained that as the paper dries, it shrinks. The uniform dampness ensures that it shrinks evenly, pulling itself tautened, perfectly smooth. This is a topic of some debate among artisans, the wet minus melt versus dry minus melt technique. Some swear by it. Others call it a risky shortcut. Trusting in a process you don't fully understand, you decide to try it. You take a small sprayer you use for your plants and mist the entire wrinkled surface of the paper. It looks awful. A sad, sagging mess. You feel certain you have ruined it. With a sigh of resignation, you lean the screen up against the wall to dry, and you go to make some tea, convinced you will have to buy more paper tomorrow. 10 hours later, you return to your study. You stop in the doorway, amazed. The screen is transformed. As it dried, the paper has pulled itself tight as a drumhead. The surface is perfectly, immaculately smooth. The wrinkles are gone. The sagging is gone. It looks like the work of a professional. You feel a surge of pride that is completely out of proportion to the task. It is the joy of the creator, the problem solver. You have taken something broken and made it whole again with your own hands. You have learned a secret of a trade that is not your own. You slide the repaired screen back into its runners. The fresh, white paper brightens the entire room, catching the afternoon light beautifully. It is more than just a repair. It is a mark of your own growing competence, of your adaptation to this new, quiet, hands-on life. Every time you look at that screen, you will be reminded that a wrinkle is not always a flaw, and that sometimes the solution lies in a strange, counter-intuitive act of faith. You have not just fixed a part of your house, you have made it, in a small but significant way, truly your own. Your growing confidence in practical skills, from gardening to home repair, begins to foster a new kind of curiosity. It's a curiosity not about the ancient wisdom of Confucian texts or the abstract principles of Zen, but about the tangible, mechanical world. How does a clock work? How is a map made? These questions are a departure from your traditional education, leading you down a path that is both exciting and slightly subversive, the path of Rang AKU, or Dutch learning. For over 200 years, Japan has been under a policy of national seclusion. Sakoku, foreign travel are severely restricted. The only window to the Western world is a small, artificial island in Nagasaki Harbor called the Jime, where a handful of Dutch traders are allowed to operate under strict supervision. Through this tiny pinhole, a trickle of Western knowledge in medicine, astronomy, art, and science has been seeping into Japan. Pursuing this knowledge is a delicate business. The shogunate is deeply suspicious of foreign influence, particularly Christianity, but it tolerates the study of practical sciences. You learn through your go-minus between a man who seems to have a finger in every pie that a retired physician named Dr. Sugita lives not too far away. He is known to have a small but impressive collection of Dutch books and artifacts, and he sometimes shares his knowledge with serious, discreet individuals. After a formal introduction and a lengthy, probing conversation, Dr. Sugita agrees to let you see his collection. Visiting his study is like stepping into another world. Unlike your own austere space, his is cluttered with strange and wonderful objects. There is a brass telescope on a tripod, a globe of the world showing continents you can barely imagine, and a large, framed copper-plate engraving of a European city with towering, ornate buildings. But it is the books that truly captivate you. They are bound in thick leather, not soft silk. They are filled, not with elegant, flowing calligraphy, but with dense, tight blocks of a strange, angular alphabet. And most fascinating of all, they are filled with incredibly detailed and realistic illustrations. Dr. Sugita shows you a book of anatomy. You are accustomed to traditional medical charts, which are often vague and stylized. This book, however, shows the human body in shocking detail, every muscle, every bone, every organ rendered with scientific precision. You see a drawing of the human eye. Cross-mine is sectioned to show the lens and the retina. It is a revelation. It is a completely different way of seeing the world, not through a veil of poetry or philosophy, but with the cold, clear eye of objective analysis. This precise, realistic art style is a subject of great debate among Japanese artists and intellectuals of the time. Some, like the famous painter Shiba Koken, embraced it, learning the techniques of oil painting and copper-plate etching. They argued that this Western realism was a more honest and truthful way to depict the world. Others found its coolness undugly. They argued that the Japanese tradition of sumi -c and yokio -e, which valued suggestion, imagination, and the energy of the brushstroke over literal accuracy, was a higher form of art. Looking at the anatomical drawing, you can understand both sides. It is undeniably true, but is it beautiful? Dr. Sugita shows you another marvelous small, intricate clock. You are used to the Japanese clocks of the era, which were clever devices but often inaccurate, with hours that changed length depending on the season. This Dutch clock, with its swinging pendulum and its steady, relentless ticking, marks a uniform, unvarying time. The very concept is revolutionary. It suggests that time is not a fluid, natural rhythm, but a fixed, measurable, mathematical constant. It is the time of merchants and scientists, not of farmers and poets. You recall a quirky, almost unbelievable detail you read about early Rang AKU scholars. When they first began to translate a Dutch anatomy text, they had no dictionary. They had to learn the language by painstakingly comparing the Dutch words to the detailed illustrations, essentially creating their own dictionary from scratch. The process took years of grueling, collaborative work. The story fills you with a deep respect for the intellectual hunger and sheer tenacity of these pioneers. You spend the entire afternoon in Drive, Sugita's study, asking questions, peering through his magnifying glass at detailed maps, and trying to wrap your head around the principles of linear perspective in his European prints. You feel like a child who has just discovered that the world is 10 times larger and more complex than he ever imagined. As you walk home, your mind is buzzing. The world of your retirement, which had become so familiar and manageable, has suddenly been cracked wide open. You look at your own hand, and you think of the anatomical drawings of the muscles and bones beneath the skin. You look at the setting sun, and you think of the globe, of the earth as a sphere spinning in a vast, dark space. This new knowledge doesn't invalidate your other pursuits. It complements them. Your Zen practice teaches you to experience the present moment. Rang AK teaches you to analyze and understand it. Your tea ceremony teaches you about social harmony. Dutch medicine teaches you about the physical body that participates in that harmony. You are not about to abandon your Japanese ways and become a European scholar, but you visit to drive. Sugita has given you a new lens through which to view your world. It is a Dutch window, a small opening that lets in a different kind of light. It adds a new layer of complexity and wonder to your quiet life, reminding you that even in retirement, even in seclusion, the world is full of endless opportunities for discovery. The first frost arrives. a delicate silver filigree on the moss and the last of the hardy greens in your garden. The air turns sharp and clean, and the sky takes on a high, brilliant blue that seems unique to autumn. The vibrant greens of summer have given way to a more muted, sophisticated palette of gold, rust, and deep crimson. The changing of the seasons is no longer just a backdrop to your life. It has become the main event, a slow, grand, and deeply personal drama that you observe with the focused attention you once gave a go board. You find yourself marking time not by a calendar, but by the transformations in your own small world. It's time to harvest the daikon radishes when the shoulders of their white roots begin to push up through the soil. It's time to start wearing a heavier kimono when you can see your breath in the morning air on the veranda. It's time to bring your most delicate bonsai seedling indoors when the night winds begin to have a real bite to them. Your favorite part of the day becomes the late afternoon, when the slanting sun sets the leaves of the single, small maple tree in your garden ablaze. You didn't even pay much attention to this tree during the summer. It was just a pleasant patch of green, but now it is the star of the show. Its leaves have turned a shade of red so intense, so vibrant, it almost hurts to look at. You often sit on your NHWA, a cup of hot tea warming your hands, and just watch the tree. You watch how the light plays on its leaves. You watch as a single, perfect red leaf detaches itself from a branch and spirals slowly, lazuli, down to the ground. Each falling leaf is a memento mori, a beautiful, silent reminder of the transient nature of all things. The Japanese have a specific term for this appreciation of the beauty of autumn colors, momejigari, or reed leaf hunting. But you are not hunting. You are simply bearing witness. This deep, aesthetic appreciation for the seasons is a cornerstone of Japanese culture. But historians sometimes debate its origins. Was this sensitivity to nature an ancient, innate part of the culture, stemming from Shinto animism? Or was it a more refined, aristocratic sensibility, cultivated by court poets and nobles during the Heian period, then later adopted by the samurai class? As you watch another leaf fall, you feel it doesn't really matter. The feeling is real, profound, and deeply human. You decide to capture this fleeting beauty. You take out your Sumi-C set, but you know that black ink cannot do justice to this fiery spectacle. So you do something you haven't tried before. You use color. You have a small set of mineral pigments, a rich red from iron oxide, a deep green from malachite, a bright yellow from ochre. Mixing them with water and a little glue is a messy, inexact science compared to the purity of black ink. You try to paint the maple tree. Your attempts are clumsy. You are not used to thinking in color. Your reds are too flat, your branches too stiff, but you persist, driven by the desire to record this specific, perfect moment. You are not trying to create a great work of art. You are trying to make a diary entry in pigment. One evening, as you are raking the fallen leaves into a pile, a slightly unusual, and some would say, quirky, autumn tradition comes to mind. It's the practice of listening to insects. In late summer and early autumn, it was a refined pastime for some to keep crickets and bell crickets in tiny bamboo cages, just to enjoy the sound of their chirping. There were even vendors who specialized in selling these singing insects. The sound of the last cricket of the year was considered particularly poignant, a final, fragile voice against the coming silence of winter. You haven't heard a cricket in weeks. The only sounds now are the rustle of the dry leaves and the cry of a distant crow. The silence they leave behind is profound. The season's change brings new tasks. You harvest the last of your vegetables and prepare the soil for its winter fallow period, covering it with a protective layer of straw. You go through your house, checking for drafts, ensuring the wooden shutters are in good working order. These are the quiet, practical rhythms of a homeowner, of someone connected to his environment. You also spend an afternoon preparing pickles, a process called tsuke-imhono. You pack your harvested daikon radishes into a large ceramic crock with salt, rice bran, and a few dried persimmon peels for sweetness. They will ferment slowly over the next few months, a store of food and flavor to last you through the cold winter. It is an act of foresight, a conversation between your present self and your future self. As the days grow shorter and the nights grow longer and colder, your life turns further inward. The veranda, once your favorite spot, is now often too chilly. You spend more time in your study. By the warmth of a small charcoal brazier, the focus shifts from the outer world of the garden to the inner world of books, calligraphy, and memory. The transition is not sad. It feels natural, inevitable. Summer was a time of outward growth, of vibrant life and energy. Autumn is a time of harvest, of consolidation, of letting go. You look at your bare maple tree. It's elegant, skeletal branches stark against the evening sky. You know that its life has not ended. It has simply withdrawn, gathering its strength for the spring to come. You feel a deep kinship with the tree. You, too, are in the autumn of your life, letting go of old roles, gathering your own quiet strength, and finding a stark, simple beauty in the stillness. The deepening chill of late autumn brings an unexpected visitor to your gate. He is a young man, perhaps 16 or 17, the son of your go-playing neighbor, Tanaka-san. You have seen the boy around, though you have never spoken. He stands there hesitantly, clutching a small, wrapped bundle. He is tall and gangly, with the awkward, earnest energy of youth. He bows deeply, almost touching his forehead to his knees. "Forgive my intrusion, sir," he says, his voice cracking slightly. "My father sent me. He thought, he said you might be willing to look at this." He holds out the bundle. You take it, unwrap the cloth, and find a notebook filled with calligraphy. It is the boy's own practice work. You flip through the pages. The characters are strong and full of energy, but they are wild, unbalanced, and lack discipline. They look like a pack of unruly dogs straining at the leash. "My father says your handwriting is very peaceful," the boy, whose name is Kenji, explains, his eyes fixed on the ground. He says it looks like it has found its proper place. Mine is not. You look from the chaotic energy of the boy's calligraphy to the earnest, anxious expression on his face. You see a younger version of yourself full of ambition and frustration, desperate for mastery, yet lacking the patience to achieve it. This situation puts you in a curious position. The role of a teacher, a sensei, is a deeply respected one in your society, but it is also a great responsibility. Historians often discuss the master-disciple relationship as central to the transmission of knowledge in pre-modern Japan, whether in the arts, the martial arts, or the trades. But what did that relationship truly entail? Was it a formal, structured curriculum, or a more organic, personal mentorship? You are not a certified master of calligraphy. What could you possibly teach this boy? "I am not a teacher," you say, your voice gentle. "Please, sir," Kenji insists, bowing again. "I do not need a master. I just need some guidance. I want to learn to be quieter on the page, and perhaps," he adds, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "in my mind." You look at the boy, and you think of the old temple priest, and of Tanaka-san, and of Dr. Sugita. You think of the small kindness and the shared knowledge that have so enriched your own quiet life. You remember the -ha moment of realizing the paper needed to shrink, or the first time you created a gray tone with ink wash. Perhaps teaching isn't about having all the answers. Perhaps it's just about sharing the questions. "Come inside," you say. "We will have some tea." This is the beginning of a new routine. Twice a week, Kenji comes to your study. You do not teach him in a formal sense. You simply practice alongside him. You show him how to grind the ink slowly, how to feel the texture change, how to smell its earthy fragrance. You tell him that the preparation is as important as the execution. You don't correct his work directly. Instead, you have him practice a single character over and over again. The character you choose is Miza, water. You have him draw it again and again. Then you show him your own version. You don't say yours is wrong and mine is right. You say, look at the difference. What do you see? At first, he is frustrated. He wants rules. He wants a shortcut. But slowly, he begins to understand. He sees that your strokes are not just lines, but have weight, energy, and a connection to each other. He sees that his strokes are just angry marks on a page. One day, you give him a slightly unusual piece of advice, a tidbit of teacher lore that you yourself are not entirely sure you believe. Before you write, you tell him, try to hold the image of a calm, deep pool of water in your mind. Don't think about the brush. Don't think about the paper. Just think about the water. Some calligraphers believed this kind of visualization, or NEN, was essential, that you had to become the thing you were writing. Others dismissed it as mystical nonsense. Kenji looks at you skeptically, but he tries it. He closes his eyes for a long moment. He takes a deep breath. Then he picks up the brush and draws the character Miza. It is still not perfect. It is far from perfect, but it is different. The wild, chaotic energy is gone. In its place is a sense of flow, of quiet potential. It is a remarkable transformation. He looks at the character, his eyes wide with surprise. I felt it, he says, just for a second. You simply nod. Your sessions are not just about calligraphy. The boy is curious about your life. He asks about your bonsai, about your swords, about your time in the castle. You find yourself sharing stories you haven't thought about in years. You tell him not the grand tales of battles, but the small, human stories, the boredom of guard duty, the satisfaction of balancing the rice accounts, the intricate politics of getting a budget approved for castle wall repairs. In teaching Kenji, you are forced to articulate the lessons you have been quietly learning yourself. You explain to him that the goal of trimming the pine tree is not to force it into a shape, but to help it become more itself. You explain that the goal of a sword kata is not to defeat an opponent, but to conquer your own hesitation. You are verbalizing your own philosophy, and in doing so, you come to understand it more clearly yourself. You are not just his teacher. He is, in a way, yours as well. His youthful energy, his impatience, his burning desire for the world, it all reminds you of a part of yourself you thought was long gone. It reminds you that the quiet life you have built is a precious, fragile thing, a stark contrast to the fire of youth, and makes you appreciate your peace even more. As winter approaches, bringing with it longer nights and a deeper quiet, you find yourself engaged in a new, deeply personal project. It's an act of consolidation, of looking back. Inspired by your sessions with Kenji and the stories you've been telling him, you decide to create a small anthology of your own life. It will not be a grand memoir or a history of your service. It will be a simple collection of the things you have created in your retirement, your best attempts at haiku, a few of your more successful sumimae sea paintings, and some reflections written in your now common practiced calligraphy. You purchase a beautiful, high-quality album, a blank book called an or IH-on. It is constructed from a long sheet of heavy paper, folded accordion- style, with elegant, brocade- covered covers. This will be the vessel for your memories. You begin with the poetry. You look back through the small, folded pieces of paper you've been saving since you first tried to capture the feeling of the moss in your garden. You read through dozens of your 17-syllable attempts. Most of them make you cringe. They are clumsy, obvious, or overly sentimental. But here and there, you find one that still holds a spark of the original moment. Kiri no asa, a foggy morning. Matsuno Idakera, from a pine branch. Miza no Tama, the jewel of water. It is simple, unadorned. It is a photograph made of words. You carefully grind your best ink and, using your finest brush, you copy the poem onto the first page of the album. The act of transcribing it feels like setting a precious stone into a ring. Next, you select your paintings. You look through the stacks of paper that document your journey from clumsy beginner to competent amateur. You choose a few representative pieces. There is the first bamboo stalk that actually looked like bamboo, full of a dynamic, windy energy. There is a painting of a single, gnarled, plum blossom branch, a subject you tackle to celebrate the end of winter. And there is your favorite, a simple, almost abstract rendering of your old stone lantern, its form suggested by just a few shades of gray wash. You carefully paste these paintings into the album. This is a common practice, but one that raises an interesting question for art historians. Were these albums considered serious works of art in themselves, or were they more like private scrapbooks? Was the act of curating and combining different art forms, painting, poetry, calligraphy, seen as its own distinct artistic skill? For you, the album feels more important than any single piece within it. It is the story of your progress, of your learning. Finally, you decide to add a few pages of prose. These are not chronicles of your deeds, but short reflections on the things you have learned. You write about the philosophy of ichi minus, go ichi minus see that you learned from the tea ceremony. You write about the importance of empty space, the ma that you learned from flower arranging. You write about the lesson your go partner Tanaka minus sen taught you, that true strength lies in influence, not indirect conflict. Writing these thoughts down is a powerful experience. It forces you to distill years of quiet contemplation into clear, concise language. Your calligraphy, which you once practiced as a mere discipline, has now become the voice of your own philosophy. The characters flow from your brush with a quiet confidence that would have been unimaginable to you a few years ago. One of the more unusual things you include is a small, pressed maple leaf from the tree in your garden, taken at the peak of its autumn color. You carefully glue it onto a page next to a haiku you wrote about it. It's a slightly eccentric touch. While pressing flowers was a known pastime, including an actual, decaying piece of nature in a formal album was not common. It violates the very idea of preservation. But to you, it feels right. The leaf, with its fading color and fragile texture, is a perfect symbol of the transient beauty you have come to cherish. You spend several weeks on this project, working slowly and deliberately. The album becomes a physical manifestation of your retirement. It is a record not of what you did in the world, but of what you learned when you stepped away from it. It is a conversation with yourself. One evening, you finish the last page. You close the brocade cover and tie the silk cord that holds it shut. You hold the album in your hands. It has a pleasing weight. It is not a record of great battles or political achievements. It will not change the world. It will likely not even be seen by anyone other than yourself and perhaps one day, Shinji. But it is. You realize the most honest thing you have ever made. It is the story of a man learning to be quiet, learning to see, learning to find a universe of meaning in a single garden, in a life that was once defined by service to a lord and a clan. This small book is the first thing you have ever created that is entirely, unequivocally, your own. Winter has fully arrived, and with it comes a deep, bone-minus chilling cold. A heavy snow falls overnight, blanketing your garden and the entire city in a thick, muffling silence. When you wake, the world outside your shoji screen is a bright, featureless white. The familiar shapes of your garden, the pine tree, the stone lantern, the bamboo fence are gone, replaced by soft, rounded mounds of snow. The silence is absolute. There are no birds, no insects, no distant city sounds. It is as if the world has stopped breathing. You spend the morning indoors, huddled by your charcoal brazier, rereading passages from your newly completed album. The warmth of the fire is a small comfort against the vast, cold stillness outside. But as the day wears on, a different kind of chill begins to creep into you, one that has nothing to do with the temperature. It is the chill of memory. Perhaps it's the stark, white emptiness of the landscape, so reminiscent of a blank page or an empty canvas. Perhaps it's the profound silence. For whatever reason, the carefully constructed peace of your retirement is suddenly, and without warning, breached. The memory, unbidden and unwelcome, rises from the depths of your mind. It is not a memory of your quiet administrative years. It is from much earlier, from your youth, from one of the last real skirmishes your domain was involved in, a border dispute that escalated into a brief, brutal conflict. You were young, barely older than Kenji is now. You were terrified. The memory is not a narrative. It is a chaotic collage of sensory fragments. The smell of wet, woolen doe blood. The unnerving, high-pitched screaming of a wounded horse. The jarring, metallic clang of sword on armor. The sound that traveled up your arm and rattled your teeth. The bewildering confusion of the fight. The mud sucking at your sandals. The desperate struggle to keep your footing. You remember the face of a man you fought. He was not a monster. He was just a man, like you, dressed in the armor of a rival clan. His face was contorted not with rage, but with a desperate, animal fear that you recognized because it was a mirror of your own. The memory of the final, clumsy, sickening moment of that encounter is something you have spent 30 years trying to bury. You get up from your cushion and walk to the veranda. Sliding open the screen, the cold air hits you like a physical blow. You stand there, looking out at the pristine, peaceful snow, but you don't see it. You see a muddy, trampled field under a gray, unforgiving sky. This is the hidden wound that your quiet arts have been a balm for. Your focus on the perfect line of calligraphy, the harmony of a flower arrangement, the patient strategy of Go, has it all been an elaborate, beautiful attempt to pave over this dark, chaotic place in your soul? Historians often talk about the trauma of peace for the samurai class, the psychological difficulty of maintaining a warrior identity in a world with no war. But they rarely discuss the opposite, the lingering trauma of war for the few who had actually experienced it, and how they were supposed to reconcile those horrors with the placid, orderly society of Edo Japan. There were no words for it, no ceremonies to cleanse it. You were simply expected to endure it in silence. You feel a wave of shame. Your quiet life, your refined hobbies, they suddenly feel like a lie. A cowardly retreat from the brutal reality of what your class was trained for. Who are you to write poems about falling leaves when you carry memories like this? You stand there for a long time, letting the cold seep into you. The snow has started to fall again. Small, gentle flakes drifting down from a colorless sky. You watch one flake land on the dark wood of the rail. You watch it hold its perfect, crystalline shape for a second, and then melt into a tiny, clear drop of water. Another one lands, and another. And then, slowly, a different thought begins to form. Perhaps your life of peace is not a lie. Perhaps it is not a retreat. Perhaps it is the only sane and meaningful response to the memory of that muddy field. The violence was real. The fear was real. That the beauty is also real. The quiet satisfaction of pulling a radish from the soil. The moment of shared understanding over a go board. The fragile beauty of a snow-covered pine. These things are not illusions. They are the antidote. They are the reason that peace is worth fighting for and worth living in. Your pursuit of beauty is not an escape from the world's ugliness. It is a rebellion against it. It is a deliberate act of choosing to cultivate a garden in a world where fields can be turned to mud and blood. It is an affirmation that even after the most profound chaos, order can be restored, that even after the deepest silence of trauma, the new, more peaceful quiet can be found. You look down at your hands. They are the same hands that once held a sword with lethal intent. Now, they are the hands that hold a brush, that tend to a tree, that teach a young boy. They are not the hands of a warrior anymore, nor are they the hands of a man pretending the past didn't happen. They are the hands of a survivor. The snow continues to fall, covering your footprints on the veranda, covering the world in a fresh, clean slate. The chill in your soul has not vanished. It is a part of you, a scar you will always carry. But it no longer feels like a source of shame. It feels like the dark, fertile soil from which your quiet, beautiful life has, against all odds, managed to grow. The snow, which had seemed so permanent, is gone. It melted away in a few days of pale, watery sunshine, leaving the garden damp and clean, as if washed anew. Tonight, the sky is cloudless, a vast expanse of deep, clear indigo. A full moon, impossibly bright and perfect, hangs in the sky, casting sharp, silver minus and minus black shadows across the garden. It is a night for stillness, a night for reflection. You decide that such a night calls for something other than the bracing discipline of tea. It calls for the gentle, warming comfort of sake. You retrieve a small, ceramic flask, a 2kk yuri, and a tiny, delicate cup, an achoko. You fill the flask with sake and place it in a bowl of hot water on your brazier, letting it warm slowly. The ritual is simple, personal, without the prescribed rules of the tea ceremony. This is for you alone. Carrying the warm flask in the small cup, you walk to your place on the veranda. The cool, smooth wood of the NAWA is familiar beneath you. The air is cold, that you are dressed warmly, and the gentle heat radiating from the sake flask in your hands is a small, welcome anchor in the vast, silent night. You pour a small amount of the warm liquid into the cup. The pale, clear fluid catches the moonlight, shimmering like a tiny, captured star. You take the first sip. The warmth spreads instantly from your throat to your chest, a slow, pleasant bloom. The flavor is subtle, a hint of rice, a touch of sweetness, a clean finish. It is a gentle, forgiving drink. You gaze out at the moonlit garden. The snow is gone, but the memory of it, and the memories it unearthed, remain. The turmoil you felt, the sudden, sharp echo of the past, has not been erased. But tonight, under the serene gaze of the moon, it feels different. It feels integrated. You are participating in an ancient pastime. Tsukimi, moon minus byoi. For centuries, nobles, poets, and ordinary people have sat just like this, admiring the moon's beauty, perhaps composing a poem or sharing a drink. You think of the old folklore, the stories your mother told you as a child, about the rabbit who lives on the moon, forever pounding rice cakes maki with a mallet. You look up at the dark patches on the lunar surface, and for a moment, you can almost see the shape of the rabbit, a whimsical, comforting presence in the immense, silent sky. This little detail, this shared cultural story, makes the vastness of the universe feel a little less lonely. This brings you to a question that has long been debated by poets and philosophers: the nature of solitude. Is this what you are experiencing, loneliness? The sad state of a man without a lord? The rule of family? Or is it something else? Is it wabi, the profound and peaceful solitude that comes from a deep connection to the natural world and a detachment from worldly ambition? In your youth, to be alone like this would have felt like a failure. Now, it feels like a privilege. It is the ultimate luxury to have a quiet mind in a quiet place. You pour another small cup of sake. The memories of the battlefield are still there, nested in a corner of your mind. You know now that they will never truly leave. They are part of the landscape of your soul, like the old, unmovable rocks in the temple's gravel garden. But you also know that the landscape is vast. It also contains the patient strength of your pine tree, the quiet wisdom of your go games, the fleeting beauty of an iris, the focused calm of a single brushstroke. Your arts, your hobbies, you realize, were never about building a wall to keep the darkness out. They were about building a house large enough to contain all of it, to lighten the dark. They gave you the tools not to forget the past, but to live with it, to balance it. The discipline of the sword, you now see, is what allows you to appreciate the fragility of a flower. The acceptance of death, learned in your youth, is what allows you to truly feel the preciousness of this single, quiet, living moment. You raise your small cup, a silent toast to the rabbit in the moon, to the sleeping garden, to the ghosts of your past, and to the man you have become. You are not just a retired samurai. You are a gardener, a poet, a painter, a student, a teacher. You are a man who has learned to find peace not by shutting the world out, but by letting it all in its own time, on its own terms. The sake is war. The night is still, and your heart, at last, is clear.